Hi, I'm Emma, and I live in a small city where people are not too much because I love to live a low-key life, and I so much love keeping to myself. My parents complained several times about this type of attitude that I've cultivated, but that's just me. So as time goes on, they have to take me for who I am. So they already know the type of girl I am, so they always let me be at all time. I'm so much quiet and reserved. I'm not the type of person who likes games or do too much on the daily activities, but I like reading novels and watching a lot of movies, especially comedy movies, because since I already choose to keep to myself, I have to find a means of catching fun by myself. I attend a high school class where students have the choice to do what they like and want. Whenever I'm in class, I'm always reserved and quiet, always. But I do have friends who always love to force words out of my mouth whenever they are around me. I love going to school every day, if not for anything but for the sake of seeing my friends, because I will surely talk whenever I'm around them. On this beautiful morning when I got to class, I noticed a letter was dropped inside my locker, which was so unusual. I decided to open the letter after the class, but while the teacher was in class teaching, all my mind was on was the letter that was dropped inside my locker. Immediately when the teacher left the class, I opened it, and what I discovered was a love letter, which I did not know who dropped it there. I tried to pay so much attention to every guy I came in contact with in class so as to get who dropped the letter, but it was not too available. After a long period of staying in class during the break hour, my friends came to my seat to meet me, and then they all said we should go outside to get something. On our way out, some guys came our way, and trying to get our attention at first, I looked at all of them, thinking maybe it might be one of them that cultivated the habit of dropping the sticky note inside my locker. But with all their facial expressions, I don't think any of them can do such. They tried stopping us, not moving any step out of there, and all we just have to do is to comply. But all of a sudden, a teacher decided to come our way. Then immediately they noticed that the teacher was coming our way. They all left instantly, and we proceeded in getting what we wanted to go by. I told my friends about the sticky note I discovered inside my locker that morning, and they all laughed at me, saying maybe a guy has been stalking me all this while. They then said that one of us should try coming to school very early so that the guy can be caught. But that guy that dropped the sticky note is just too smart and expert. We tried for days, but we could not get the guy, so I told the ladies to forget the issue, that I'm very sure that one day he will surely reveal his identity. As time goes on, it became a regular routine. Every blessed morning when I get to my seat, I will surely find a sticky note with a love quote inside my locker. At some point, I got annoyed and frustrated, but there's no point yelling because I did not know who was doing such a thing. So I decided to stomach it, and I did not tell it to anyone. One day during school hour, a teacher at school was explaining to us a physics experiment, and he made it as a game because he wanted all the students to participate and be carried along. During this process, all students participating closed their eyes and tasted, perceived, and some liquids to tell what it is based on their taste. It was quite fun because all students were carried along for the first time at school, and we all laughed where someone guessed wrong because we all gave various answers, knowing fully well that our tasting boards are different. I really enjoyed the class that day because it was so much different. The following day in class was Friday, so a group of people in class came together and discussed that we should have a get-together party on Saturday, which is the following day. So they asked the whole class about their opinion concerning the party. To my surprise, everyone was happy to hear that they all turned in. Well, as for me, having a get-together party on Saturday, though the plan was a little bit awkward to me because I don't really like associating myself with things like that because I so much love keeping to myself. A venue was picked, and all plan was so fascinating and lovely. Actually, I love the plan because I want to see how it will look for the first time by the beach side, so I decided to hang out that day. When I got home that day, I told my mom about the plan of going to the beach the following day. She was so happy to hear that because she's never seen me going out before. So that night, my mom came into my room and went directly to my wardrobe to select the clothes I will be putting on the following day. When it comes to selecting clothes for an event, My mom is very good at it, and she so much loves me looking good and cute, always. So the day finally came. I woke up so late, maybe because I slept late checking out the clothes my mom was picking for me to wear. I had to rush to the bathroom to have my bath so as to dress up to meet with the event, knowing fully well that I'm late already. After having my bath, I dressed up, looking cute and pretty for the event. After dressing up, I set out for the party immediately. So finally, I got to the venue, a little bit late. And trust me, just as planned, all eyes were on me, because I was so much looking gorgeous and pretty. After getting there, a guy named Sean in my class ran towards me to give me a long hug and a peck. After he did that, I was so shy to take a step away from where I was standing. But from the look of things, he's been a long-time crush. Throughout the party, Sean was all over me, because that will be the first time he will have the opportunity of talking to me and expressing himself. We both have a walk together, and he told me a lot of things about me which I was so surprised to hear. Then I knew he has been the guy stalking me. Actually, Sean has been the guy dropping all those sticky notes with love quotes under my locker. At first, when he told me he was the one, I was so mad with him. Then I told him that he's a coward. If not, he would have come to me himself and not by note. Then he said he did not know what I was going to say because he did not want to be too forward. Then we both smiled and laughed together. Then we moved on with the party. We hung out and made a walk through a beach and had fun, and then we all decided to go to a friend's apartment. So a small group of us went into the apartment, and here comes the idea to play a blind taste game, similarly with a game we once played at school. I was so anxious to play the game, but at the same time, I didn't want to join. I simply refused, but then I thought of it that I am the one who is really good in tasting things and smell very good, so I later decided to participate in the end. So, as usual, the game started and was getting more interesting and fun, but still yet throughout this period, Sean did not leave my side for once. Well, he might be thinking he might not have this type of opportunity again. So everyone's turn during the game came and went, and here it comes my turn. So a guy closed my eyes and pushed my head towards the object. So I tried to perceive the object. I was not getting it. Then I tried touching it with my nose. At first it was a strong object as I touched it with my nose a bit and said, "It's a pen," as it does not smell at all. They all smiled. And then I was wondering what could it be. I then gave another try, but the object this time was softer. I was then surprised, thinking within me, maybe the object has been changed. But then I asked if they changed the object, and changing the object is outside of game rules. They all said no, that it's still the same object, and I thought, what could it be? But I had no answer. After a little moment of thinking, I grabbed the object with my hand to know what the shape of the object looks like. Then I feel it was a tall object, similar to cylinder, and I immediately opened my eyes. I was so much afraid because it is something inappropriate. When I opened my eyes, what I saw was simply a banana, which was so different to what I felt when my eyes were closed and everyone was laughing at me. I was annoyed, and only Sean could notice it then. He came to walk me home. He explained to me that it was a banana, but still yet, I disagree. I just told him to close the discussion. When I got back home, I greeted my mom with a weird look on my face. Then I went straight to my room. She gave me some minutes to be by myself before she came to meet me. Then she asked me what happened at the party. Then I narrated everything to her, not leaving behind the aspect where Sean came to give me a long hug and a peck. She told me not to be annoyed about the game, though I have forgotten about how I felt during the game period because the thought of Sean is now all over me. So Mom asked me to gist her about Sean. So I did, and we all laughed and I was happy all through the night. When I got back to school, I discovered that I did not see the sticky note as usual. Then I looked straight down to Sean's seat, and then I saw him smiling. Then I laughed as feel. So the class started and immediately the teacher came in. Then every other student told the teacher about everything that happened to me at the party, and they laughed. But then the teacher said to me, he will call me one day and tell me a secret behind this game. Then he left the class, but within me I am still not sure if the object was banana at first, or they changed the object during the game, as it softened and changed, and I am still confused, and I will never play that game again. This is the reason why I didn't want to participate in the game earlier. See what it all turns out to be? Please let me know in the comments if you think they've changed the object, or am I just thinking wrong?
My biggest secret I have to tell you. Hi. All you need to know about me is that I'm currently almost 14 and a female. One day I was with my older sister at a festival, and we went to a psychic palm reader. And my sister went first, and according to hers, it went very well, and she had a great reading. Now when I went in, the lady touched my hands and jolted back. I was scared, but she seemed terrified of what she had just noticed. She started chanting out the number 14 over and over, and then she started trying to get some words out of it. I was scared and trying to help her. She said, and I quote, "Dark, something dark, window 14, him 14, no, dark, ZMSJ, beach, name." I was shaking her to make her come out of it, and when she did, she sprung straight into action, writing down her phone number and address of her shop, and told me to come there before my 14th birthday, so she could help. For a while I just thought she was insane, and it was a scam. Then I decided to call her, and the phone line said that it was disconnected. So I looked up her shop, and it is not a thing. It's like she completely disappeared off the face of the earth. That's when I looked back at what she said, and I remembered she said window, and immediately I thought of one thing. When I was about 11 years old, I had a thing happen to my window when I was in my room that I remember my dad telling me to shut my window and lock it because it started to get cold outside, and I did as he said. But later that night, I woke up to being really cold. I looked over in my window, and it has been unlocked and lifted just slightly, but nothing else happened that night. I shut the window, locked it, and I woke up in the morning. It was still locked. And then, my 12th birthday, the same thing happened, but the window was just a little bit more open. That happened twice that night, before I woke up in the next morning. But then, my 13th birthday happened. I had remembered that my window opens on my birthday sometimes, which I thought was just some weird coincidence. So that night, I had a couple of friends over, and we and my parents all watched a movie outside the living room. But in the middle of watching a movie, we heard a loud crack come from my room. Immediately my dad ran into there to see what happened, and he just walked in and said, "What the heck?" I followed him in there. When I looked at the window, I was a little scared to see that there had been a large crack in the middle of the top part of my window. And the window was completely open, and the screen was popped out, and it had fallen onto the ground outside. We checked everywhere that night, inside the house and outside. There was no sign of forced entry. No one had been there. The window just cracked open, and the screen had popped out. And now, to hear that the palm reader said something about my being aware of being 14, I was so scared. I mean, how could she have known that? The scary part was the fact that she was scared of me. But just this experience isn't why I decided to write this. It was because I went to the fair a few days ago, and I went to a tarot card reader with my older sister again, and she heard everything my tarot card reader said. That I would be going somewhere soon. I didn't know, but it wasn't really my decision, and that something very dark would happen to me. And she said that it would happen very soon. My birthday is also very soon. I was immediately scared of what that could have meant, but she also said that I would meet someone, a boy. He would make my life better. He would take me somewhere that I would feel free. But she did say that I would never fall in love with him until I really saw who he was. She said that he would be cocky and full of himself and mean and just overall not a good person. But then I would see the real him and fall in love even though no one would even know about it. Which didn't make any sense to me. The night after I got back, in this dream I was running through the woods, and I was happy. I was running through the woods completely happy, and someone was there running with me. Even though I couldn't see them, I didn't see who it was. And after I had run for a while, I saw a beach that I recognized. I don't know where from, and I ran to the beach, and sat next to me was a rock, and engraved on that rock was the name Zita, which for some reason I knew was the first name in the initials of ZMSJ, which were the initials of the thing the palm reader had said. Then that's when I woke up. I had a dream the next night where I could tell that I was younger. And I was in a small beach house on a small deserted island, not much bigger than the house itself. And I walked up to a mirror and looked at myself. I looked just like me, but with no memory of even being me. I'll admit, I looked a little more muscular and a little more roughed up. But then I got angry at something for some reason. And when I looked back at myself, my soft green eyes turned ice blue for just a second, and then I woke up. But after that dream, I'm scared to sleep tonight, and also my birthday is coming up in less than a month, and I don't know what to expect. So there you go. My story, if literally anyone has read this far. I just needed to put it out there, somewhere, because I'm scared. Spirit, universal signs, or final destination. It's 9/11/2018 at 10:30 a.m., and I'm having the most weird day of my life. But this weirdness isn't just affecting me. My boyfriend is also having an off, weird, and unsettling day as well. We woke up between 5:30 to 6 a.m., not on purpose. But this isn't an odd occurrence for us to wake up early. I have a kidney disease, so when the pain is high, I cannot sleep. He usually stays up with me until I feel better. Nothing weird started happening until around 7 or 8 a.m. He goes off in a trance, and I knew he had seen something that had freaked him out. I asked him what he had seen, and he replied, "Thought I seen a white light go from the kitchen door to the bathroom door, but my eyes were probably playing tricks on me." I had replied to that with a simple, "You're tired. Go get some sleep." But once he's awake for good. Some time goes by and I see a white, round, and bright light that resembles an orb fly from the kitchen to the bathroom. I got freaked out and expressed to him what I had seen. We sat for a little bit being spooked. We decided to play with an Ouija board. Wonderful idea, I know. Nothing happened. It didn't work. Or did it? We started hearing knocks and threes in our kitchen. Went to investigate. Nothing. Appeared normal. It happened 3 times. Hasn't happened since. This was 8:38 a.m. After this happened, my boyfriend randomly says, "Oh, today is 9/11," and we go on discussing that topic a little bit. Then we decided to Google signs of ghosts in house. Another wonderful idea. And the signs seemed true. For us, at the moment. Knocks, orbs, etc. Then I stumbled across pages like, "Signs a spirit is trying to communicate with you. When will you die? And how will you die? Quiz." I clicked every page, and, well, here's my discoveries. Spirit communication. Sending certain numbers or words radio stations, light bulbs going out frequently, which doesn't happen all the time at our house. Death date. Took the quiz. Got a long time before I die. Year 2069. The boyfriend got 2092. No, we do not believe in this. Did it merely for shits and giggles. How will I die? I got car accident and he got in his sleep from old age. Again, do not believe in this, but it does have significance to my story. Nothing else happens weird. I'm still feeling sick and pain, but it's time for him to work. I drive him to work because he can't drive at the moment. This is where our day gets weirder. Like, guys, I'm talking the feeling of Final Destination. We keep hitting all red lights. Nothing unusual, though. Except he goes to turn on the radio. Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. Funny coincidence? We laughed it off and continued our car ride. I take the exit to the interstate and he flips radio stations. Interstate driving. Okay, not funny anymore. We started getting spooked. Talk about the spirit communicating through radio stations. We get on the interstate and this van pulls out in front of me with a huge red or white sign that read September 11th, 2001. Remember how I was discussing 9/11, today's date? Strange, I tell him. I'm having anxiety. I slow down, drive with more caution than usual. He flips radio stations. I'm feeling anxious. And we both get even more spooked. Turn off the radio. Drove past this loud sound, construction zone, and it freaked me out. Felt more louder than usual. And I literally felt like I was in Final Destination. Rolled up my windows and we discussed being spooked. Reached his work. Nothing else happened. He's there currently. I don't work until 6:45 p.m., so I'm currently home while writing this. I feel I'm being watched. I have heard the creaking of the floor where you have to stand to make it creak, and I have the feeling of something bad is going to happen. I'll keep updated in comments, but I wanted this day documented. I also want to know if anyone has this type of stuff going on to them, especially the radio stations. I'm a big believer in universal signs, but now I'm debating whether a spirit is trying to contact me. What do you think? Creepy grocery guy. Little backstory, I was 16 when this happened, and I was in excellent physical shape. I'm now 17. The diner I worked at was on the side of a road and was next to a gas station that we shared car parks with. The diner had an odd setup to get to the back bins and the storeroom. You had to go through a big metal door, and that was at the back of the kitchen. The diner I worked at also had a fresh produce supplier that delivered most days early in the morning, and they had a new delivery boy. I'll call him Billy. He had been with them for around 2 months. He was a hot topic between the female employees, as he was extremely good looking, but seemed to be a loner. I don't know for sure, but I think he was around 18 or 19. I'd spoken to him before, and he had asked me for my number once, but I politely said I don't give it out. I was 3 months into my first paying job at a local diner working as a waitress when this happened, and on this particular day, I was asked to stay on and work the night shift with a female colleague that I was familiar with. I didn't mind, as I saw it as an opportunity for extra cash. It was around 12:30 a.m. when the last family eating left. So it was up to me, the other female waitress aged 18, and the male chef, who I believe was around the age of 24, to clean and lock the place up, as the owners were on vacation. I decided to take the trash to the bins out back, as I was too tired to do anything else like sweep up or clean the tables. To this day, I regret being lazy. To get back to the bins, you have to go through the kitchen, and then through a big heavy metal door, which I was okay about doing as I've done it many times before. But once I got out, I forgot that the hinge where the door clips to the wall was broken, and it slipped and closed naturally. I was angry as I'd have to walk around the whole diner to get back in through the front door. As I stretched up to throw the bag in the bin, I heard a noise. It sounded like a grunt, and it kind of spooked me. But I put it down to my imagination. But then I heard it again, and it was coming from the storeroom. Me, being my stupid Dora the Explorer-ass self, poked my head into the storeroom, and at the beginning I saw nothing. But out of the corner of my eye, I caught something moving very slowly toward me, and as my eyes adjusted, it was Billy, the grocery boy. And he was holding his trainers in one hand. Once he saw I noticed him, he froze. I was trying to think through every logical explanation for why he would be in the storeroom at this time. But I got interrupted by Billy stuttering, I'm just putting your delivery in here. My van broke down. That's why I'm so late. This frightened me to the core, as my boss told me she had not made any orders, as we needed to use up old stock first. And then it clicked. He had no shoes on. He was trying to sneak up on me. We just stared at each other, and I muttered, "Oh, that's okay. I'm going inside now. Shut the door when you're done." As I felt if I questioned why he was there, he would get hostile, and the situation for me would become even worse. I proceeded to back away, still facing him, until I was near the gate that opened into the car park. "The kitchen door's shut, silly." He laughed slightly. I've never felt so patronized in my life. He was talking to me as if I was a child that he was correcting. "Oh yeah, ha ha ha, looks like I'll have to go the long way." I joked about it as I could feel my situation getting worse. He just had an expression that reminded me of that cat from Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, just shut the door when you're done. Bye." I shout out before turning around and opening the gate. My whole body froze when I felt a vice grip on my wrist. Now that I think of it, I'm surprised he didn't break it. By instinct, I started tugging my arm away and shouted at him something like, "Dude, what the fuck? Get off me." But that only seemed to make it worse, and it was almost like he loved to see me struggle. "Stop resisting me," he said in a flat tone as he used his other hand to try and pull my skirt down. I think all my fear turned into fight as I began kicking and punching the right side of his face. I'm about 5'8", and he is probably around 6'2". I think I poked him in the eye with one of the fake nails I had on, and he instantly let go and started cussing very loud. I took my chance and bolted out of the gate and into the car park, which was empty, a part of one car parked in the gas station at a pump. I looked closer. Inside was occupied before I ran toward it. I looked back at the gate and saw Billy running straight at me, calling and shouting things like, "I knew you were a bad girl," and "Get back here, you stupid slut." The loud shouting seemed to get attention of the car. And to my surprise, it was the family that had left 10 minutes before. Once I reached the car, they were all standing outside and looked confused until they saw Billy running towards us. The father and the son stood in front of me and told him to calm down or they'll call the cops. This just seemed to make Billy worse. He started hissing at them and jumped at me before he could grab me. The father grabbed him and pushed him so hard and he fell to the ground. We all just stared at him while he got up off the floor and dusted himself off. "You really should have given me your number." He just nodded his head at me like he was scolding a child. All the fear I was keeping in just came out and I began sobbing hysterically into the mother's chest. The older brother started to cuss Billy out and push him away from all of us. "I like the way you fight me." He smirked at me and turned around and started walking towards the road, the brother following him to make sure he left. When the cops arrived, we went into the diner and I gave a full statement, and so did the family. It turns out the other waitress and the chef were cleaning with the radio on with full volume, so they couldn't hear me screaming. When my boss came back, she was told everything by the police, and we now have a new supplier. The kitchen door hinge is now fixed, and I no longer take the trash out at night. As we knew all of Billy's employers, the police paid them a visit, only to be told he quit 2 weeks prior, and the address he had given them was a block of abandoned apartments, and his number was disconnected, so nothing ever came of the police report. I am now dating the oldest brother of the Diner family. I am so thankful that they couldn't work their sat-nav, because I know I couldn't have outrun Billy to the entrance of the diner.
Do you sometimes wish you could forget some days? Skip them or just play rewind on the awful clips of your life? The pain and the stress sometimes make you unfocused. Your vision goes blurred and mind all hazy. Well, it was exactly one of those days. But first, I'll give you a little background about me. I'm Natalie. I am 14 years old. I have recently started going out with a boy from my school, Harry. He's a dream come true. He has asked me to be his girlfriend a few weeks ago. My mom passed away when I was 6, and I was brought up by my dad, who is extremely hard-working. My dad is a mechanic and leaves home at the crack of dawn. It was a Thursday morning. My dad had already left for work. I was in deep slumber when a shooting pain in my stomach jolted through my entire body. It was hard for me to breathe. It took everything in my body to get up from my bed. My dog was watching me with the bleary eyes, and I wondered, why can't he do something? Can he see my agony? After the struggle, I finally grabbed hold of my phone and called 911. The dispatcher was kind and understanding. She was quick to send me help. Finally, they arrived. The sound of the ambulance alerted my dog. My dog bolted towards the door and started barking continuously. As a result, they broke the main door and took me to the hospital. I opened my eyes to a scrupulously spotless hospital room. Beams of sunlight filtered through the window. "Relax, honey," I heard a soft voice whisper. It was a nurse. I sighed and tried to relax. Within the fraction of a few seconds, I glanced at my stomach, which made me panic. It was swollen to the size of a hot air balloon. I started questioning myself. "What is this?" I asked myself repeatedly. It took me a fine moment before it dawned upon me. I let out a huge gasp. Am I a 14-year-old growing a real-life baby in my tummy? Am I going to become a mother? I cringed at the thought, but the sight of my growing stomach only confirmed my realization. "But I've only had my first kiss with Harry a few days ago," I said as I tried to gather my thoughts. "This can't be true." I started crying relentlessly. My shrieks and cries grasped the attention of the nurses. They looked at me and started laughing. Their laughter overshadowed my agony. Their shrill laugh made my head spin, which came to a halt when I heard a sudden knock at the door. A feeling of relief washed over me as the person behind the door was my affectionate father. "Dad, I've missed you," I breathed. My dad had a shabby appearance. His eyes were sunken in with huge eye bags underneath. I was slightly confused. He rushed towards me and engulfed me in a hug. He ignored my growing belly, but when he saw, he gave me a smile. "I can't believe I'm going to be a grandfather." I was taken back. Why is he behaving like that? I pondered. That was certainly not the reaction I was expecting. "We have to get you out of this hell," said my dad. "Why?" I questioned. "They are not good for you." It would be an understatement if I say I was bewildered at how my dad was behaving. The nurses started laughing out of the blue. Laughter echoed through the white walls of the hospital room. It made my dad lose his temper. He started yelling at them. Suddenly, made his way towards me and picked me. He detached the tube of the drip out of my arm. I gasped due to the sudden discomfort. His actions alerted the hospital staff. The nurses called the security and they took my dad away. They prevented him from seeing me afterward. In the next few minutes, the same intensity of pain ran through my frail body. The nurses injected medicine into my body and asked me to relax. "You'll be all right, darling," comforted a nurse. I threw up multiple times that night, which consequently made me feel better. They gave me a few pills to make me fall asleep. Later that night, I woke up due to a disturbance in my room. I was shocked to see my dad in my room. He had his hand over my attendant's mouth. I was petrified. I had never seen that mysterious terror in my dad's eyes. He was unrecognizable in nurse scrubs. Anyone could be easily fooled by his new persona. I didn't know what to do. But I knew one thing. My life was in danger. He hurriedly put me in the wheelchair, ripping away the drips. "Dad, stop! Dad, you are hurting me!" I let out a faint, incoherent cry. "Shut up!" Dad yelled. His eyes were bloodshot red, skin pale and lips trembling. I closed my eyes momentarily, and a whimper escaped my mouth. What has come over my dad? I wished my mom was still alive. Is it too much to ask for? I thought medicine and illness made me emotional. I hated that feeling. My dad took a hold of my wheelchair and rushed through the bleak hospital hallway. He greeted the doctors and hospital staff in a sing-song female voice. I never knew my dad had astounding acting skills, but similarly, I didn't know anything about him, did I? I questioned myself. I never knew I had to see the day. I'd have to see his facade slipping away. But here I was, being escorted by my dad dressed in nurse clothes. Life is so strange. It was too much to process for my 14-year-old brain. A doctor stopped us at one point and requested my dad to join him for his daily round at the children's ward. My dad pushed my wheelchair in a vacant hospital room and left me to help the doctors. I was surprised. He left me there for some time and came back with a devilish grin plastered on his face. They are such fools, the doctors. I can outsmart them every single day. I couldn't believe my dad would say such things for people highly regarded in our society. He was being outrageously awful. He told me that he has checked the patient's body temperature, measured blood pressure, and blood glucose concentrations. That easy, you see. They think they're gods. I had been horrified for my life as well as the ones my dad treated a while ago. A few seconds passed, and I heard some voices. "Catch them! Catch them! They are running! Phone the security now!" The entire hospital was in mayhem. People were running. Nurses, visitors, doctors, and admin staff, all of them were in a state of chaos. But nothing could stop my dad. He was still going peacefully at his own pace, oblivious to the chaos caused by his antics. A yell stopped him for a moment, but he grabbed the wheelchair and started sprinting through the hospital towards the elevator, colliding with the medical equipment and food trolleys in our way. At one point, he toppled cleaning trolley. There was alcohol and disinfectant all over the floor. God help me, save me from the monster my dad has become. Nurses were calling the security, and I wondered why it took them so long. Please don't harm me, I cried. My mind was spinning and my vision was becoming hazy, but I tried my best to keep myself conscious. I took small breaths as instructed by my father once. I wanted my father back. Where did you go, Dad? Please, what has happened to you? He blatantly ignored my cries. Finally, we reached the elevator. My heart was pounding hard against my chest. I had streams of tears running down my cheeks. My life was at risk because of my father. Is there anyone more unlucky than me? I questioned myself. I hope not. My dad pushed the buttons to the highest floor. We'll put you to sleep forever. These doctors are no good for your deteriorating health, he whispered in my ear. For the first time in my life, hearing my dad's voice caused shivers to run through my body. I always found his voice soothing and comforting. I was certain he was possessed or something. He was behaving like a hysterical madman. Not only that, but he also didn't care about his blood, me. We reached the 40th floor. I was frightened. The doors of the elevator opened. Luckily, the security guards reached before us. His face lost its color, his eyes were wide and his body shaking. He was panic-stricken. In a matter of seconds, he pushed me towards the security guys. I was grateful they arrived on time. I didn't even want to think about what could have happened if they didn't come to rescue me. My dad went hysterical. He was mocking them. He was making animal-like noises. Catch me if you can. He looked like a kid has taken away his favorite stuffed toy or candy. Let's have kids. Kids? I questioned. He sure had some mental issues. What could have happened in a span of night? I didn't know. He ran towards the stairs with guards following behind him. I was left all alone on God knows what floor. I screamed and cried for help. I tried to gather strength to get up on my legs. My legs were shaking. I was having hot flashes and I was sweating profusely. I said my prayers repeatedly. God, give me the strength to stand up. Put me to my feet. It took everything in me to get up. I gripped the sides of the wheelchair tightly, trying to stand up. Finally, I got up. I couldn't believe myself. I let out a scream. I yelled, "Hurrah! I can walk!" With that, I went inside the elevator. Despite Dad's questionable antics, I still loved him. Why wouldn't I? He had brought me up with all the love and affection in this world. I was the luckiest kid with the most affectionate and caring father and an adorable little pup. Oh, my pup, you must be hungry. The thought of my puppy all alone in my house saddened me. I stopped at each floor to help my dad, but couldn't see him anywhere. I screamed his name each time, but my efforts proved to be useless. At the 7th floor, I finally saw him. But what I saw made my head spin. I couldn't believe I saw that with my own eyes. My jaw went slack. I thought I was daydreaming, so I pinched myself again and again. It was my dad getting into a fight with someone who was also my dad. I was shocked. My dad was wearing his work clothes. They were greasy. Couldn't contain my emotions and thoughts. It was the moment I passed out. When I woke up and saw my loving dad next to me, feeling of relief washed over me. My dad gave me a warm embrace. I couldn't stop crying. I was so scared. Do you know what has happened? Please, Dad, I need to know. He told me to relax. He told me that guy was a criminal who had run away from jail. He was taking revenge on the hospital. The hospital had sent him to jail because he took part in criminal activities taken place at the hospital a few years ago. He resembled my dad, which is why I mistook him as my dad. In addition to this, I ate too much Chipotle, which caused food poisoning. I needed emergency treatment, which I received promptly. My dad brought me my favorite tomato cream soup and kissed my forehead. You're safe, my kid.
The Taxi Driver Who Loved Me. Hi, today I will tell you a story that taught me a lot of lessons. The most important one was that sometimes what may seem true is not true, and we shouldn't be so fast into thinking assumptions about people. My name is Carol. I am 16 years old. I live far away from my parents. Because of my school, I live alone in a small apartment. Well, not really alone because I have a cat with me and her name is Sam, and she means the world to me. We do everything together and go to every place together. She is my family here when I am feeling down. I play with her and all the sadness just simply fades away, and it's like she's an antidepressant to me. I don't make many friends, and it's really difficult being alone. My parents knew that, therefore they gave Sam to me as a gift. It took me some time to adjust to the new place, but I got used to it. There is this taxi driver who is a lot older than me. He also lives somewhere near my house, and he usually drives around the area. And the thing that I wanted to tell you about him is that he is in love with me. Well, at least that's what I used to believe. He is a really nice person. I had seen him a couple of times in the street and after school. We talked for a while and I realized that he is in love with me. He is always so nice to me, and sometimes too nice. It made me a bit suspicious about him and his intentions. Being a girl of my age who lives alone, I was a bit careful about these things. I had been in his taxi several times and nothing wrong happened. One day I went to the market to buy some cat food for Sam and some things for my apartment. I took Sam with me because I never leave her alone. I took the bus to get to the market because it was really far away from my house. When I got to the market, I bought cat food and other household accessories that I needed, and after shopping for a while, I got really tired and thought I might eat something because my house is very far away from the market. It would take a lot of time to get there, so I looked for a restaurant and had a meal there. I was so busy shopping and doing other things that I completely forgot that it's gotten so late, so I went to the bus stop. After that, unfortunately, I just missed the bus by a minute. The next bus was going to come in an hour. I waited at the bus station for almost half an hour with my cat, and still half an hour was left. The time was moving so slowly. Seconds seemed like hours. There were some passengers waiting at the bus stop. One of them told me that sometimes the next bus takes about 2 hours to get at the stop. And that got me really worried because the sun had almost set. There was no sign of the bus, and after some time, a taxi stopped in front of me. When the window got rolled down, it was the same man about whom I was telling you guys about. He told me that he had completed his shift and was heading home, and coincidentally, he saw me at the bus stop since his home was near mine. He suggested me to get into the car with him and he would drop me off at my home. I got really worried about what to do because it was getting so late and still no sign of the bus, and I was afraid that he might do something to me. After thinking for a while, I decided to get into the car with him. I got in the back seat and he started the car. It was a long journey in front of us, so we started to ask questions about me and we started talking. During our conversation, he was being a bit flirty and was staring at me the whole time from the back of the mirror of the car. Honestly, guys, I was a bit scared too, but I had Sam with me, so I overcame the fear and tried my best not to let him know that I was scared. By looks, he looked like a decent man. Something wrong wasn't expected from him, but still my mind was creating different situations about what could go wrong. And guys, there were a lot of things that could have gone wrong in that ride. We were halfway into our journey that he suddenly stopped the car and looked at me. Imprecise, he was looking at my breasts. Then he bent his neck and he tried to grab my chest. Well, at least that's what I thought he was doing. But that didn't happen. I had Sam in my hands. At that moment, I had no idea what to do. I was in severe shock at the moment, so I closed my eyes. But turns out he was picking up Sam, and I thought he was going for my breasts. I got really shocked and frightened at that moment, and he realized that. He felt so guilty and apologized to me for grabbing Sam like this. But then he explained why he did that. When he was young, he had a cat just like Sam. He showed me her pic, and the resemblance between his cat and my cat were uncanny. He told me that he loved her so much and told me all the stories about his cat and all the adventures him and his cat had. I asked him where his cat was now and what happened to his cat. This question brought a huge deal of sorrow on his face, which gave me the answer to my question. Then he told me that once he was going someplace and he had a really big accident. The cat was with him in the accident, and unfortunately, the cat couldn't make it out alive from the accident. He was also really injured, but he was more sad about the loss of his cat than his own injury. I got so sad after hearing all this because I couldn't even imagine what I would do if something like this would happen to Sam, because she is my everything, my whole world. After that, we talked for the rest of our journey, and we became good friends too. Though I love Sam a lot, I told him that he could play with her for some time if he wants to, because I had an idea of the pain from which he was going through. He told me that it's a really nice gesture from my side, but he couldn't take Sam away from me. He said he didn't want me to go through what he went through when he lost his cat. We didn't realize in our talking that we had reached home. I wanted to talk to him more, but I guess that was it. He dropped me off at my apartment. I offered to pay for the journey, but he didn't take a single penny. I even tried forcefully to give him the money, but he didn't take it. So I thanked him a lot and went inside my apartment. He also went to his house after that. When I was about to sleep, I realized that he was only looking at my cat and he was only being nice because he was a nice person. He didn't have any wrong intention. At that moment, I reflected upon how wrong I was and was really feeling ashamed for thinking this wrong about such a nice person. I wanted to tell him all this and what I thought about him and how wrong I was. I really wanted to apologize to him many times, but never got the courage to do so. We humans are really fast in judging people. We all are. We start making up assumptions about a person, that what type of person he or she is, and we stick with false assumptions, but when we realize that our assumptions are wrong, we are all left with nothing but guilt. That day, I learned an important lesson that is going to stick with me forever, which is we should never be so fast into making assumptions about people. We have to at least give them a chance to explain themselves. If you like my story, kindly like this video and tell me in the comment section what you think I should have done. Should I have told him or not telling him was a good decision? Also share any similar experience if something like this happened to you. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.
As you already know through the first part of my story, my name is Carol, and just like every other girl my age would easily misinterpret and suspect kind gestures from male folks out there, it was somehow normal for me to suspect a taxi driver that showed me so much love. As a matter of fact, you can't really blame me. After numerous sexual assault attempts I've suffered from old people that are even related to me, I have grown up to suspect every male folk out there, especially in today's world. It seems nothing goes for nothing. Indeed, every act of kindness is suspicious. However, these reasons didn't in any way make me feel better. I still felt I owed the man an apology. Unfortunately, unlike other days, it was a little bit difficult to come across the taxi driver. Subconsciously, I was eager to see him again. Well, in one of the evenings after a stressful day at school, I decided to go out for a walk, and boom, we met. Actually, I couldn't really hide the excitement. It was too obvious judging from the way I reacted when he got out of the car and extended his hand for a handshake. I held on firmly to the hands and smiled back. After exchanging pleasantries, the first thing he said was that he bought a cat that's very similar to the one he lost in that fatal accident back then. He described how adorable the cat is and how much he wants me to see her for myself. Personally, I was happy for him. At least this new cat would help him get over the loss of the previous one. As funny as it might sound, I realized that all the while we were still holding hands, and he was gently caressing my palm in the process. I didn't want to make the mistake of misinterpreting his intentions once again, so I overlooked it. After telling me more about his new cat, he softly invited me to visit his place and see the cat for myself. I accepted with the condition that it would only be possible during the weekend or any day I'm less busy at school. Since I didn't have much to do in school that week, one of these days I later decided to pay the taxi driver a surprise visit. I got into his apartment, since the door was open, and I saw the cat lying down on the sofa. Just like he described her, she was the perfect beauty, and I couldn't help but play with the cat's fur. It was soft and awesome. The cat, on the other hand, was staring at me with this confused face, and I couldn't help but smile back at her while whispering my name to her. After a few minutes, the taxi driver came in from the next room to meet us having our inaudible conversation, and burst into a loud laughter. In no time, he jumped on the sofa and was struggling to gain the cat's attention, but it was as if the cat already fell in love with me. She fixed her gaze on me and kept meowing in a sweet manner whenever I made a statement, as if she was also giving me replies. Before I knew what was happening, I've spent hours playing with the cat and the taxi driver, and it was already too late for me to go back home. The taxi driver noticed that I was nervous, so he promised that he'd drop me at home and that I should not worry. Although I'm someone that does not like disturbing or stressing another person too much, I had no choice but to allow him to take me home, considering how unsafe it was to go alone. In a flash, the taxi driver was already in his bedroom to wear his clothes and also pick the car key. In no time, we started the trip, and this time around, it was not really a boring journey compared to the previous ones I had. The truth is that by now, he had already gained my trust through his actions. So we were more like friends now. He told me a lot about himself, and I felt I'd be considered boring if I didn't also contribute to the list. I had to tell him how my parents never once allowed me to eat ice cream since, according to them, I'd get cough from cold. We laughed at the misconception about ice creams I grew up with. It was funny because ice cream is like every child's favorite food, whereas I never had the opportunity to taste it once. From the ice cream discussion, we started talking about school life during his days and how it is now. I noticed that the taxi driver slowed down and then branched into a parking space before stopping. On the left side of the road, I observed that the place was a market, and deep inside, I kept wondering why he stopped. I guess he also noticed that I was uneasy and decided to break the silence by saying, "Please, I want to get something from the market. I'll be right back." And then he winked at me. His winking was so bad it got me cracking up with laughter. In split seconds, the taxi driver was already back in the car, and somehow I was unsure if he was able to get whatever he went in to buy. With hands on his back, he said he had a gift for me, and that I should promise him that I won't reject it. I began to imagine what could possibly be in the gift he got for me. Sluggishly, I nodded in affirmation that I won't reject it. Well, even after agreeing to collect the gift, he still didn't allow me to see what was inside the bag. He stepped into the car and we continued our journey, but in silence. After some time, he stopped the car and came to the back seat where I'd been sitting all along, and then opened the bag slowly. Right inside, the surprise he got for me. A big, creamy, mouth-watering ice cream. As a matter of fact, it was really the best surprise I could get. I watched the ice cream, fascinated, and it actually made me realize that dreams do come true. I couldn't even wait for him to hand it over to me. It was hard to resist the urge of hurriedly dragging the parcel from his hands. He smiled as he watched me eat the ice cream with all amount of seriousness. Since the car was already too hot, the ice cream started melting and I had to eat it faster and rapidly. With the way I was devouring the ice cream, the taxi driver had to promise me that he'd get me more next time. He turned over to the driver's seat and we continued the trip. All of a sudden, we heard a sudden bursting sound and he held the brake. After careful observation, he noticed that one of the tires actually picked up a sharp object and got deflated. It was actually frustrating because the whole unfortunate scenario happened in the middle of the road. Since the taxi driver is always going around with most of the repair equipment in the car, he got out and in no time was able to fix the tire issue with the spare he had. Well, although he tried repairing it, the car still needed the services of a professional. They had no choice but to manage. After adjusting the tire for some time, he started pumping air into the fixed one. This made a little disgusting noise, and I had to close my ears until it was over. Immediately, he was done. We continued our journey again, but before we could get to my apartment, we noticed that the taxi driver's cat that was with us all through the time we spent together was nowhere to be found. Our fear was that maybe we left her where the car crashed, and so I decided to join him in search of the cat. We got to where the car crashed earlier on, and we looked all around, but we found nothing. We got so disturbed and even had to enter the nearby woods, but our search was still futile. Then and there a thought came into my head, and I had to tell the taxi driver that maybe the cat had returned home to the house after they left her in the street. After saying that, we entered the car and headed back to the taxi driver's house to check if the cat was there. Luckily enough for us, at arrival, we saw the cat crying in the house. We both embraced her and kind of tried explaining how much we have looked for her. She stopped crying and kept rubbing her fur gently on us. By now it was already too late, and considering the condition of the car, I didn't want the taxi driver to risk anything just to drop me off, so I just asked him if I could sleep over that night at his place. Actually, I had so much confidence that nothing will go wrong, like I expected, and he agreed and said I could sleep with him and the cat together in the bed if I wanted to. The suggestion was okay with me, but I told him I had to take my bath first since the day's stress actually got me sweating profusely. He showed me his bathroom and I took my bath but had to wear the same clothes I wore before. I came back and laid down on the bed with him, and just a few minutes after we started discussing again, we suddenly heard a knock on the door. And since it was late in the night, we were both worried and scared. The first thought that came to my mind was if it was actually armed robbers. I was literally shaking in the bed. The taxi driver summoned up courage and opened the door, and right there were 2 policemen and my parents with them. According to them, they'd been looking for me all day. I was so happy that my parents came to pick me up, but why they had come with the cops was something I didn't understand. The cops took the taxi driver, handcuffed him, and he was prosecuted and sent to jail. The cops thought that he actually did something bad to me, but I told them he was a good man, and he had never done anything bad to me, but they didn't really believe anything I said. One of the cops kept saying that maybe the man had threatened me not to reveal the truth. He told my father that the taxi driver had done similar things in the past. Well, I don't really know how true that might be. All I knew was that he never hurt me in any way. After the taxi driver was sent to jail, I decided to take care of his cat and mine. I'm sure that's the least help I could render to him. But even with that, I'm still confused. I don't know what to do. Can I go to visit him in prison? I'm sure he'd be happy to see me, but I don't know if my parents would want me to do that. Or maybe I should just let things be, and after serving his jail time, he'll be released and I can hand over his cat to him and apologize for what he's gone through because of me. Please help me by commenting on how I should act now, because I don't know what to do next. You can also like the video and subscribe to our channel.
Like a bolt from the blues, it has happened. That the taxi driver who I was beginning to get fond of is no longer with me. I was not myself by the passing of each day. Oh my God! Examination was by the corner, and it seems as if I don't give a damn. I couldn't just help it because every one of my thoughts was tailored toward the good moments I had with the taxi driver to the moment he was taken away from me. The more the days went by, the more scared I became. I was torn between 2 worlds, one filled with everything I could ever dream of, love, value, passion. The other, forbidden love, punctuated by dangerous choices. Finally, one day, I decided to visit him, irrespective of what the consequences may be. Because since after I learned my lessons on the disadvantage of judging or doing things based on assumption, I started to take bold steps and good risks. So I got dressed in my skimpy skirt and a top and immediately made my way to the jail. On my way, I was lost in thought on what could be his condition, now that I've not seen him for 2 months. Who knows how he looks now? Can he still recognize me? Ugh, I just hope I can still see him. Amidst my fears, the one that fears me most was if my taxi driver friend would permit me to come close to him, because it's obvious that he was sent to jail because of me. That look of guilt was all over me, just like a rat that was caught stealing. "Gosh, I've passed the jail!" I screamed at the taxi driver that was driving me. "Are you stupid?" I rudely screamed out of annoyance. "You've passed the jail!" "Oh, sorry, ma'am. I was expecting you to tell me you want the light." The innocent taxi driver responded in a polite manner. Then I got conscientious of myself. This is not me. I was overreacting and transferring aggression because of what I'm about to face. Then I apologized to him and asked him to take me back to the jail, which we have already passed. He gave a slight sigh and headed to the roundabout to take an upturn back to the jail. At last we got there, and I alighted immediately in a hurry, heading to the gate when the taxi driver yelled out, "Madam, you've not paid me." I immediately came back and paid him in a hurry. Am I having a psychological problem or what? What's really happening to me? I seem not to understand myself anymore. Immediately, I got to the jail. By this time, I became intensively nervous. I got this feverish feeling all over me, causing me to shiver. Immediately, I saw the policeman walking up and down. I had to compose myself immediately. I got to the table where I was queried of who I came to see and who he is to me. Remember, I've decided to deal with pretense. So the true nature of what I felt for the taxi driver made me want to say something beyond a friend, but I sensed it could complicate issues as my parents are already involved in the case. So I just told them that he was just a friend. After the interrogation, I was asked to register my details, which I did without compulsion. I was taken to another room where I waited for him to be brought out. Oh, my heart skipped a beat as I looked at my friend. He has really changed a lot. His beard has grown so long and bushy. He used to be lean, tall, and handsome. But right now all those physical appearances are thrown to oblivion. How I wish I could find this thin air where they disappeared to, so I can restore them back. How impossible it is right now. Tears dripped down my cheek as I hugged him passionately, not letting him go. I felt like kissing away his tears, which were flowing like a river. His became uncontrollable that I had to instantly be strong for him. Suddenly, every fear that I had about him disappeared. He is too innocent and calm to hurt a fly. Talk more of committing a crime. I brought out my handkerchief and wiped away his tears. I promised him that I would do whatever it takes to see that he is out of jail. It's already been 2 months he's been in jail. Does it mean that nobody cares about him, and even his so-called uncle is not aware of his condition, for them to leave him like this? How have you been, dear? As you can see, I am fine, he responded with a smile, which I feel was not real. As I was about to ask him the next question in my mind, he continued, "It has been hell here, not seeing you for months, Carol. I have lost all sanity, but thank God, now that I have seen you, I feel much better. Carol, eating has been difficult for me, but trust your presence have changed everything in my system." I felt pity for him because I am certain that his suffering is as a result of our friendship. His words were so passionate that they swam into my marrows and sprouted out the feelings I had for him. I must be honest, although I don't know if it is a wise feeling, but by this time I felt like kissing him, especially those tears that kept dropping down his cheeks. I felt this magnetic force pushing my lips to his as we stood opposite each other with the table serving as a barrier. But then I gained this consciousness again to discontinue the action. Then he held my hands across the table. "Carol," he called, "I need you to do me a favor if you really value me and want the best of my happiness. This is the only thing that can bring me out of this jail alive." "What is that?" I responded without mincing words. "I need you to go to my uncle's house. Take my house keys and get me the pictures of my cat. You know I can't be with my cat here. I just want to take a glance at it once more. She is the source of my joy. Please help me." I understood his plight, because my own cat has always been an antidepressant for me. That is how comforting cats can be, and true to the fact at a time like this. Taxi driver's cat is the only one that can help him overcome his depression. Do I really have an option? Not now. I promised to get to his uncle's house, collect his keys, and get the cat's pictures. Then I requested of his uncle's address, which he gave me. I hugged him and left for the mission. I headed immediately to Uncle Sam's house. On my way, I was still reflecting on what happened in there some minutes ago. That feeling that almost made me kiss him. Oh, it feels so good. Was this really out of pity, or was I just being real? I asked myself, well, time will tell. Let's go complete this mission first. Locating Uncle Sam's house wasn't really that stressful because Taxi Driver has already showed me his house before. On getting to Uncle Sam's house, he was at the table munching some fruits. He gave me a warm welcome. As I delivered the message, he immediately abandoned the fruits and went into his room and came out almost in a jiffy. He said, "Let's go." Like a military man, I followed after him as we both marched down to the taxi driver's house like soldiers. That anyone who saw us coming need not to be told that something was wrong. We arrived at the taxi driver's house, and as I was waiting to get the pictures from Uncle Sam, I spotted the cat running under the sofa. I was excited when I saw her, thinking she's going to smile at me, but she didn't. I tried to grab her, but she is very far from my reach. This attracted the help of Uncle Sam. He pushed her several times, and I finally got the cat. But while he pushed her, I also found a strange paper under the sofa, a paper with names and X's. X. I had to hide the paper from Uncle Sam, and I secretly left with it. After some minutes, Uncle Sam came out with a bag. He handed over the bag to me. He said that the bag contains all the pictures, but I shouldn't open it for any reason. All I need to do is hand it over to the taxi driver. "This bag will probably take the taxi driver out from the jail," he warned. Now I'm beginning to sense something fishy about the whole scenario. I was so curious about the bag and even more curious about the strange paper I found under the sofa. So I decided to take the risk. When I arrived home, I opened the strange letter I found, and guess what I found? A paper with 7 names, and all of them were crossed with an X as they were eliminated. And in the end, I saw my name, Carol. And my name looks like it was waiting to get eliminated, or what I can call the next in line. I was astonished at what I saw. Could this be true? May there be this mistake somewhere? Or it's certainly not my own Carol. There and then, my feelings about the taxi driver automatically changed. Does this mean that the cops were right when they said that the taxi driver has done this in the past? Maybe the taxi driver was trying to fool me to get me assassinated much later. Oops. Don't really know the thought to believe now. My head got heavy. But that's not really my problem now. My problem is what to do with this mysterious paper that I found my name on. I was confused on whether to send the letter to the police or keep it secret. It really took me the whole week to think through. Not until the weekend when I decided to handle it my own way. I know it's quite risky for me to take the paper to see the taxi driver. Perhaps I would question him about this, because my life is at risk too. On getting to the jail, the first guard I passed strangely watched me, and I was a bit nervous. But it didn't take long for me to compose myself again. When I got to the next guard, the policeman asked me what was in the bag, and I said only some pictures, and while he tried to take my bag and inspect it thoroughly, he was interrupted by his colleague's urgent call. I was glad I made it finally to see the taxi driver. I can feel this ecstasy all over him this time, not because he saw me, but because I came with the bag, and without responding to my greeting, he immediately took the bag and hid it behind his back. After that, the taxi driver became uncomfortable with my presence, that he asked me to go, and when I was about to go, I drew closer to him, and I said, "There's something But he didn't give me any space to talk, and he shut me up, and said that I need to start going. He stood up, holding his stomach, acting like one who is badly pressed and need to ease his bowels. Do I really have an option? I had to leave. But I became more and more confused as I stepped out of the prison gate. I went home straight, thinking, I can calm my nerves. I tried to sleep, but it was nowhere to be found. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling and thinking on what to do next. Yes, I got an idea. I think I should talk to Uncle Sam about the paper. It was already 10 p.m., but I don't give a damn of whose axe is to be gored. I need to get this issue in my heart settled once and for all. So I picked up my phone and I called him. But he asked me to come over somewhere close to Taxi Driver's house. Without a second thought, I went straight because I need to offload the burden. When I got there, I noticed Uncle Sam was somehow drunk, and he asked me to join him on the sofa for a drink. I vehemently refused, although I'm almost 18, but I am not still allowed to drink, and I don't want to. I'm a girl on a mission, so I don't need anything to distract me. But he insisted and tried forcing the drink into my mouth. At the same time, he held my throat, pushing me to the wall, and started muttering some words to me. You are a smart and brave girl. You did a great job. You're my hero. Blah, 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 blah. I couldn't take this anymore. Is this how to compliment someone? I pushed him away and took to my heels. Of course, I still kept my secret. The confusion this time is unfathomable, because I don't know why someone will be praising me, but yet holding my throat as though I'm fighting over something with him. That's quite ironical. I really need answers to these questions in my mind. I neither know who to believe now or who to confide in now. Should I go to the police or keep the secret and strange paper with my name still waiting to get crossed? I need your advice on what to do before I go nuts or make the wrong decision. And remember, if I delay, who knows the deadline for my elimination? It may be this last moment you are reading this. So do not hesitate to save a soul now. It was a very beautiful garden, well decorated with my best flowers, the roses. I was lying so comfortable in the arms of the taxi driver, and the next minute, he disappeared into thin air. I searched and searched for him that I almost felt bad, but suddenly I heard a sound with someone closing my eyes with his soft palm. I needed no prophet to tell me that it was the taxi driver. He appeared from the second tree. Then we started playing hide and seek in the garden as the trees smile at us and the birds whistle their melodious love song into our ears. For the second time, I didn't want to let him go. Suddenly, my alarm brought me back to reality. That made me realize that it was only a dream. Why can't this dream just continue? I cried. But then, how can I be playing so insecure with a man who has my name on his elimination list? Still on my bed pondering, I thank God it is a Saturday morning, no academic load, and I have myself all for me. Then I suddenly heard this big horn, and I stretched my eyes to see through the window what this early morning disturbance could be. Guess what I saw? I saw a taxi in my garden. I peeped very well to know whose taxi it is, but I was struggling because the weather was not yet very clear. I decided to come outside. As I was about opening the door, I heard the doorbell ring. I quickly opened the door, and there he is, the taxi driver, standing right in front of my door. Wow, he's finally out! I invited him inside, and he came in full of joy and happiness. I decided not to give him that warm welcome as usual because, for all I know, I'm no longer safe with him around me. I did the little I can by offering him a coffee. You can keep it on the table. This coffee is not what I need now. Then he started caressing my long, silky hair. The feelings of my dream just came over me again. I felt loved once more. I felt like holding the taxi driver again and kissing him all over. He gently drew my head to his chest and made me lie on it comfortably. Oh, this one place I always loved to be, on Daddy's body, but my parents are so strict that I never had such moments with them. Sometimes when I come close to him, seeking for just petting and care, the next thing would either be an interruption from a business call or a haste to work. Growing up was never fun for me, and now someone is giving it to me with quality attention, love, and care without seeking anything in return. But then, I was reluctant to allow him to have his way. Of course, you know that I was still afraid from the time I found the strange paper." "You are not going to escape me this time," I murmured within myself. I was now very much out to talk to him about the papers I found, and when I was about to ask him, he interrupted me again. "Let's go. I want to show you something," he said. I got more scared this time. Where is he taking me to? Maybe the elimination time for Carol has finally come today. What do I do now? Do I call the cops or my parents? They were the ones that put him in jail for a reason I'm yet to find out. Then I summoned up the courage to ask him, "Where are you taking me to, and for what reason?" "To my apartment, of course," he responded. "Or do you have any problem with that?" This time he laughed uncontrollably. "Okay, because the last time you came you didn't come back? Oh, don't worry, no matter what it takes me. I'm going to make sure you sleep on your bed tonight. And excuse me, who says I'm going to take the whole of your day? I just want to show you something, and bring you back to the house. Certainly not more than an hour." I was still looking at him, and his babblings in bewilderment. I asked him to allow me to dress up. Then I sluggishly changed into a pair of combat shorts and a shirt and a pair of canvas shoes. I consciously wore this attire with the sense that if anything should happen and it calls for me to take to my heels or fight, I will not have any hinges doing that. Immediately I came out, he screamed, "Wow! That's my elegant queen! What a strong woman, brave and smart!" Those were exactly the same words that Uncle Sam used on me holding my throat when I went to make the report. Guys! This time around, my fears knew no bound. Nevertheless, I reluctantly entered his taxi and we went together to his apartment. On getting to his house, he didn't even care to offer me a seat or coffee. Rather, he immediately started searching for something. From the sitting room, he moved to the bedroom and came out again, scattering everywhere. Now he was already sweating profusely and was very nervous. "Who could have taken this? It was right here," he exclaimed. Then he took to his phone, which he forgot in the taxi, and called Uncle Sam on the phone. He did not answer. He sank on the sofa with a deep sigh. "What is it you are looking for? Tell me so I can help you," I said to him. He laughed hilariously at me and said that it is something I don't know and I shouldn't know until today. My heart skipped a beat and I screamed, "Till today? What is happening today?" I questioned him. He didn't respond to my question but drew me close to his bosom the second time and started caressing myself. "You're a genius, and I like that. But this one is a secret for me." Then he aggressively stood up and said, "Yes, let's go to Uncle Sam's house. He might know where it is." So we decided to go to his place. On arrival, taxi driver told me to wait in the car, and he went to Uncle Sam, and they started fighting with words. "Why are you lying to me? What did I do to you? Just tell me where it is." These were the words I was hearing as I eavesdropped. It didn't take long. Taxi driver came back in the car very nervous, and while we were going back to the house, I asked, "What's going on? Why are you so nervous?" He said nothing. "My uncle claims not to see what I've been looking for." There and then he told me that he had a paper where he put name ideas for his cat, and he can't find it. My goodness, is that all? I was surprised. Why, it should be a problem to him. Then I understood. You know the affinity we have with our cats. We value them so much, and anything concerning it. But then, the paper isn't the problem. But there is a precious name there, which I want to show you. Now I know that the paper was nothing scary. They were just name ideas, and he also wanted to name his cat with my name. This one got me crazy. You know, I was beginning to feel like a princess now. I excitedly told him that I have a surprise for him too, when we get to my house. This time my fears have already melted. I was beginning to see that lovely and caring friend in him as before. On getting home, I rushed immediately under my bed where I hide confidential things. I ran out of the room in a dancing and excited motion, and I showed him the paper and told him that I wanted to save it for him. He jumped on his feet and lifted me up, flinging me around the room, looking into my eyes. He wanted to say something, but then remained speechless. Finally, we went back to his house again. Behold the cat lying in her normal position on the taxi driver's bed. This time, immediately she saw me. She smiled at me, and he carried his cat up facing me and named the cat Carol, my name. You are very beautiful, meek, and smart. That's why I gave you this name after Carol, my friend. Both of you possess the same quality. And he handed over the cat to me, saying, Carol, behold your namesake, Carol. Oh, that was one of the best nights ever. He really treated me like a queen and also thanked me a lot for everything I did when he was in prison. I have a good news to break to you. My taxi driver friend announced to me that he wanted to open a beautiful big boutique for me, where I can sell cats and its accessories. Talay! Oh, my Cinderella dance! I couldn't help the excitement that was written all over me. I jumped on him, giving a big hug in appreciation. I would have kissed him, but I was still being a disciplined and good girl, you know? This is a dream come true. I know how I have longed for this, but my parents wouldn't let me have my way. Wow! I can imagine the name of my boutique. Carol Cat Boutique, or Catty Car Boutique. Home for your cat. Whichever one, I can't wait to see the reality of this offer. My desperate mood can be defined from my voice. When, where, how, I questioned. He was happy that I'm excited too. He told me to calm down. That will be soon. But first, he wants to give me a treat by sending me to travel to another state of my choice. That sounds great, but too good to be true. The taxi driver is just full of surprises. And what I did to deserve all this is what I can't tell now. In addition, he said that on my arrival, I will also have to bring a bag from his friend. Not again. A bag? The last one was not funny. I was still shocked, confused on whether to embark on the trip or not. Meanwhile, he is still awaiting my response. Why on earth would he just send only me for this trip? Why won't he come along with me? I cannot forget the saying that once bitten, twice shy. Should I take this second risk again? For sure, if I am to embark on this journey, my parents would not be aware of it. What if at this period my parents visit me in school, and what will be my response? How do I face my parents when I return? I'm thinking, what would go wrong? It sounds just like a free trip. But I told the taxi driver that I will think about that and let him know. Really? Hope you're not going to take all ages to think about this. I expected you to make it snappy and give me a yes, and then you leave the rest for me, because the next thing you will see in your hands is your plane ticket ready to go on board. He snapped his fingers. I still have no one else to confide in. What do you guys think? Should I make a free trip that's going to be fun and give me exposure and experience as a young girl? What should I do? Please let me know in the comments below. I have always seen that adulthood is more of an elusive, sort of abstract concept that I'd thought when I was younger. I just assumed you'd get to a certain age and everything would make sense. That's just what I think right now. I feel like making my own decisions without my parents' consent. Yeah, I'm an adult after all because I'm already 18. Some of my age mates are already having boyfriends, but I've not got into any relationships before. But you know what? Now I'm ready for it, and I do not doubt that my taxi driver friend is waiting for me to give him the next blink to get closer to me more than ever. As you know, the taxi driver is a kind and generous person.
He is someone I've always loved to be around, irrespective of the misunderstandings of the past. It was no longer as though he was reading my heart as regards to what I want. Becoming fond of me is an understatement comparing to what started existing between me and the taxi driver, especially since he told me of my free trip to Brazil. One cool evening, I was at home when he knocked on my door. I opened the door and guess what I saw? A bunch of rose flowers standing right in front of me, but the knocker was nowhere to be found. "I know it will be you," I said, kissing the flower as I made my way into my room. Then he appeared from my behind. Ah! My heart skipped a beat. He hugged me, telling me how much he values and respects me. I love it when someone uses the phrase, "I value you." He told me that he would like to spend the night with me, and it was going to be the best night of my life. "You know that when you are gone to Brazil, I will miss you so much. So permit me to enjoy quality time with you before your departure." Immediately he said that, I became skeptical because of the last incident that took place, the last time we wanted to spend time together. But then, since I found out that Taxi Driver is not a bad person, I now feel free and safe with him. So I accepted. I accepted to spend the night with him at my house. He is so lovely. During dinner, he fed me as though I was a baby. You know, I can't tell the last time someone fed me, talk more of petting me. Indeed, that night was a night of nights. We freshened up and then retired to bed, though he decided to sleep on the floor. I was surprised. But before then, he came to my bed and whispered to me, "I've got a movie for us to watch. Do you mind joining me?" "Sure!" I screamed in excitement. He took me to the couch and played the movie. Oh, it was a blue film. He turned off the lights, and all we could hear were moans from the television. We watched with keen interest until we were sent to bed. That night, the taxi driver sneaked into my bed, and that was how it started. He would touch me on sensitive parts of my body. I was very aroused and excited. My heart was pounding, and my respiration was serious. I had never been this aroused before. Then he whispered to me again, "I love you with all my heart, and I promise not to hurt you, but grant me this offer, to stay with you throughout this weekend." This is what I wanted. I wish I can have this feeling over and over again. I gave him a yes, and he started kissing and caressing me. This happened almost every night for those 3 days we stayed together. We watched more movies, and we practiced what we watched, but he never did anything bad to me. I just can't stop loving you, Carol. I feel like kissing you over and over with passionate kisses, with eyes closed amidst the cool breeze under splashing rain, even in my silence. I miss everything about you. Every time I start missing you, I try to pacify myself by thinking that the worst is already over. But no matter what I do, loneliness casts gloom and darkness. Like a raging, merciless tornado. It sucks away my life's happiness. Just hug me, Carol, and feel my heart barely limping through. I'm not asking for a lot from you. All I need is you. Your love is all I care about. Just your life alone. Just your love. Like a tree withering away without rain. Like a bird trapped mercilessly in a cage. Like a fish doing circles in a tiny bowl. Like a tiger, chained, loathing in rage. Like a flower dying under the harsh sun. Like a lake drying up in a drought.
This is how I feel from within when I'm lost in thoughts of you, my dear Carol." That was a love song composed by the taxi driver to me on the last night we spent together. As days went by, I discovered that what we were doing was wrong, and we needed to start having some safety measures. He declared his love for me and showed me how much by doing things for me. He did my household chores, took me for a shopping spree in town. He didn't want to see anyone around me. At night, he would touch me and tell me he couldn't wait for me to grow so we could be doing that together. I was already forgetting about the trip to Brazil when he reminded me of it on the morning of his departure from my house. Then he dips hands into his pocket and gave me a one-way ticket to Brazil and wraps of money. "I guess this is going to take you for 1 week to stay in Brazil. Your flight is booked for Saturday morning by 8 a.m. Immediately he left. I got back into the house. I was dancing all over the house full of joy. It seems like a dream to me. Carol in Brazil! Wow! I started getting the things I need ready for the trip. On Saturday morning, the taxi driver picked me up from my house and we headed to the airport. He reminded me again that it's going to be a fun trip while we are heading to the airport, and upon arrival he says, "Good luck, Carol." Good luck? Why is he saying good luck to me instead of safe trip or journey mercies? I pondered. However, being carried away by excitement, I took it as nothing serious. It was a cool flight to Brazil and I enjoyed every bit of it. On arrival to Rio de Janeiro, the second largest city in Brazil, my excitement knew no bounds as I sight the statues of Rio. So amazing! I landed at about noon, and it's very hot there. As I picked my luggage, I saw 2 guys waiting for me with my name boldly written on a paper, Carol. Without a second thought, they approached, although it was such a cold one without pleasantries. I entered their car as we embarked on a very long journey. It was then I realized that I have been taken from the city of Rio to a far and poor city of Piauí, and the hotel they lodged me in is nothing good to write home about. Very old and dirty. Gosh! Taxi driver, where are you? Was this what you promised me? I screamed. Out of depression, I asked the big guy if this is really where I'm going to stay. The big guy says, "Shut up, and you are not allowed to move from the hotel because the place is very dangerous." And they shut the door and left me. I was left alone. No dinner, no intercom connection. At midnight, I was scared the more because there was no light for me to even see myself, Carol. At 6 a.m. the next morning, the door was pushed open by one of the big guys. Just like when we first met, no pleasantries nor greetings comes. He hands 8 bottles of drinks filled with a purple fluid over to me and asks me to put it in a translucent bag. "What is this?" I asked him. He said, "These are the taxi driver's stuff. He needs them." I was getting more inquisitive this time as I saw the purple fluid drip again from the bag where I was parking them. "Why does he need this?" I asked again. He responded by saying that these are fantastic drinks and are produced only in Brazil. The big guy handed over my plane ticket to me to fly back with a fly time at 7 a.m. and shot the door saying, "I'm waiting for you downstairs. Hurry up." Oops, it's already 6:30 a.m. I somehow managed to fit all bottles to a bag and we head to the airport. On arrival, the big guy left me at the airport and immediately disappeared. I innocently made my way to the control and I queued together with other passengers. As I was waiting to get on the plane, a policeman screamed at me, "Hey, madam, please come with me." "What's wrong?" He sent me to a control check and asks what's in the bag. "I can spot that fluid dripping from your bag." I immediately told him that it's nothing but some drinks. In a twinkle of an eye, a lady came with a stick, opened a drink, and put a cotton board in the bottle, and the cotton board immediately turned from white to blue. Then the inspector said, "The result is positive for drugs." I was shocked. It was as if it were the movies. They started interrogating me without a break. "Which sent you? You're a drug pusher." They asked more and more questions, and I started crying. Then the police gave me the chance to call anyone for 1 minute, and after that will send me to custody. Who else will I call than my parents? I thought about the most lenient of my parents who can tolerate this bad news I'm about to break. Okay, Mom. I called Mom on the phone. I told her that I'm in the police custody in Brazil. Mom is shocked, and the phone stops. I cannot believe it that I am sentenced to jail for 30 days. For what, I do not know. Guys, what wrong did I commit? What is my offense? Is it a bad thing to help a fellow? Please tell me, what should I do now? Help me by commenting on the video. Life can be devastating, especially when what you thought would never happen happens to you. Back in jail, I was kept at the female sector of the jail. Sitting at the door where I waited for the jailer to come and take me in, I was sitting close to a woman. She asked me what my offense was. I told her that I was caught carrying a liquid substance which I did not know was a drug. She shook her head in pity and said, "My daughter, it will not be a funny experience." Immediately, I got gripped by fear. I mean fear of the unknown. I began to imagine what my experience will look like. I've never been to prison before, never in my life. Initially, I was scared of meeting those real and fierce-looking drug bandits. I finally landed in the jail. That day, it was as if a new prey for consumption had just landed. I got scared the more because I have never slept in a jail before. The questions were too numerous for me to answer. What's your name? What's your offense? How long will you be here? Well, I was able to answer the few I could. Then I went to bed. Throughout the night, tears dripped down my cheeks, wondering what my parents would be thinking about me. I searched for sleep, but I could not get any. I was completely shattered. Even if I was to be jailed, certainly not in another country where I knew nobody. I was still dumbfounded, staring at the ceiling and wishing that the morning breaks as fast as possible. The next day, my mom came to see me in the jail. I hugged her as we lavished rivers of tears on each other's shoulders. Deep within Mom, she knows I am innocent. It was Dad that scolded me, asking what business I had to do in Brazil from school. I had no option than to explain everything that happened to them. Dad gave me assurance of getting me out of here this month. It was not such an easy one because I have no witness but myself. I could not even reach my taxi driver again. Then a few months down the line, I was still in a really bad way. Then I went up to court. I got 2.5 years. I was only 18. I was shocked and scared of being away from my family and friends for so long. I have never been in jail before, so I didn't know what to expect. I just wasn't myself. I couldn't sleep. I was keeping myself to myself, just staying in my cell. I've never made a friend or talked to anybody. I hated the taxi driver the more. He played with my life and sense. I began to have negative thoughts about him. Obviously, there is nothing good about my taxi driver. He has just been taking me from one problem to the other. This should be the 3rd time now that he is landing me into a problem. First, it was the letter under his cushion. Second, was his arrest, which was done by my parents. And now, he brought me to Brazil, only for me to end up in jail. What kind of man is this? I scream in agony. One of my jailmates jumped out of bed when she heard my scream, thinking that something is wrong, but when she entered my room, she noticed I was fine, apart from the sweat that was all over my body. She came close to me and drew me close to herself, cuddling me back to bed. She is such a nice person. With the stories I heard about the jail, I didn't believe a good person can be met in jail. She asked me what was the problem. I was still speechless. After waiting for some minutes, I finally spoke to someone in the jail. I felt loved once more. I hid nothing from Cynthia. I told her everything that happened. How I met the taxi driver, and how I fell in love with him, and the challenges I have experienced from being close to him all this while. But then I noticed something. Cynthia kept smiling at me while I was telling her the story. I was surprised. What is it that my story was not touchy enough? I was disturbed about her response that I asked her if she has had such an experience before now. She said not really, just that she was imagining how good the taxi driver was to me. I was really surprised because this was a taxi driver that brought me here. All she said after hearing my story was, "Will you get something good without getting bad? It's not possible that all these just happened like that." This statement got me thinking throughout the morning, but I decided not to get confused and came to the conclusion that taxi driver just used and dumped me. Months went by, and I didn't hear from my parents talk of more of the taxi driver. This was another wonder for me. How can my parents abandon their only child in a jail in another country? It was that bad that even when I tried calling with the jail cell phone, they would not pick my calls. I sent them messages still yet. I got no response from them. Are you sure these are my parents? Because I don't see the reason why a mother and father should abandon their own child, even if she committed murder. I felt like killing myself. I think that should be the best solution since nobody cares. Not even the court called up my case again. Well, for the court, I don't blame them because I had no lawyer. Because the last time I checked, my parents promised to come with my lawyer who will take me out of jail. My dad had the best lawyer in my country. From the cases I have learned he has won so far, they are nothing to compare to it. All he would need is just a truthful statement of the story from me. Give him the next 24 hours and I'm out of here. But I never saw a glimpse of neither my dad nor his lawyer. On one Saturday morning about 2 a.m., I was sleeping and the memories of me and my parents kept flashing down my memory. How loving the taxi driver was to me, and how he promised to set up my cat boutique was the second thing that came to my mind. And then the last thought I had was that of my cat, Karina. I was debased. I thought of how lonely she would be by now. Has she run away from the house when she saw no sign of my return? Oh my God! How has she been feeding? Who has been cuddling her during the snow because of the cold would be hectic by this time? I woke up from these memories weeping profusely, and I felt like killing myself and forgetting everything. I thought of getting a knife or gun from the jailers, but they were all in custody of their weapons. Then a thought came into me. If I can stay under the snow and get trapped there, it will be nice. After all, nobody will know because the snow would have heaped on my body and everybody will think it is a normal snowberg. What happened to me that early morning was what I could not fathom. All I could remember was that I stood up and took a walk outside into the snow. I stood outside the snow trying to forget my past. The doctor said I came back to consciousness after 3 days, and it was alleged that I wanted to commit a suicide in a snowberg. When I was unconscious, I could not remember any other thing. all I saw was myself walk through a dark lane with my cat. She was so happy to see me. She jumped on every part of my body, but I noticed she lost one of her eyes. When I saw this, I was angry, and I wondered of what would have led her to this state. Could it be that she was trying to break through the window when she did not see a sign of my return and got cut? But thank God that I woke up. When I woke up, everything changed. It was as if I was in a new world. On opening my eyes, I saw a lot of changes. I was surrounded with flowers everywhere on the hospital bed. The walls, even the floor, were well decorated with rose flowers. Oh, they are my best flowers. Another spectacular thing I saw was signs written on the doorpost telling me to get well soon. Another read, "We love you. Please come home. We miss you." The hospital room was calm with no sign of any human being. I couldn't understand what was going on. I stretched my hands and legs, but I didn't feel any pain. I felt a bit relieved that nothing serious happened to me. I took one of the flyers and perceived the healing aura that came from the petals. I remained in the room without making a move, but kept wondering on who this could be. I thought aloud, I know this is from my cellmates. They love me to the extent of saving me from the iceberg. When I remembered the care and love they shower on me whenever I feel pale and lonely, they make sure I feel good by singing to me. Suddenly, the doors opened. Guess who I saw? It was Karina, my cat. She ran onto my bed and hugged. This is unbelievable. I expected to see the jailers around me to get me secured so that I don't run away. But the opposite was the case. I saw my cellmates walking and started singing. Happy birthday to me. How could I have forgotten that it was my birthday? I just turned 19, and I never knew. Then the big shocker came when I saw the jailers also walk up in the same mood. It was a dancing party amidst a lot of drinking. Indeed, my mood was lightened, and I got more excited. I stepped down and joined them in the dance. The door opened again, and who I saw was unbelievable to me. It was the 2 policewomen that caught me with the black liquid substance at the airport. I got scared the more and began to withdraw my steps backward, looking for somewhere to hide. But they called me on to feel free and also celebrate my day. They joined in the dance. I tried feeling free, but I couldn't help it but to remain careful and conscious of my environment. I was still trying to understand what was happening when my parents walked in. I wanted to hug them in excitement, but then I had a mixed feeling. Why should I welcome them after abandoning me for the months in the jail? But my mom rushed and hugged me. She pleaded for forgiveness as she promised to explain all that transpired to me. The next person I saw was beyond my imagination. The taxi driver walked in and knelt down in front of me with a ring in his hands. I was mute. Then Mom and Dad and everybody in the room screamed, "Please say yes!" Then Dad said that everything that happened was a deal to check my love for the taxi driver, who happened to be a multi-millionaire in the fashion industry. I said yes because I still love my taxi driver. We got married and loved each other forever.
Let's go back to late August 2017 when I, after not going on a date or actually even talking to a man for 9 months, decided to download Tinder and Bumble. Turns out it's all the same people on both apps. Same dis, different pics, am I right? I met a guy named Mike. We talked and drank beer at the since closed Green Lake Bar and Grill for 3 lovely hours, and afterward I walked him to his car. his car because I suck at parallel parking, and in an effort to avoid having the patrons at my destination witness the embarrassing attempts and failures of properly operating a vehicle, I have been deemed fit to drive for over a decade. I find an empty street, ditch the car, and walk half a mile or more every time. Gotta get my steps. Do people still count those? I don't. Whatever. Anyway, we get to his car and it's a wreck, full of overflowing cardboard boxes and garbage in the back seat. The exterior paint is peeling and there are empty cigarette boxes strewn about, tobacco ash on every surface, spilling like slow lava flows from every crevice. Crooked butts peek out from under the seats like the stale McDonald's french fries of my grandmother's minivan throughout my childhood. I am half convinced that Mike has lived full time in this car at one point recently. Total dirtbag aesthetic. So naturally, I was swooning. We said goodbye and hugged briefly, politely. He didn't try to kiss me. A dirtbag, possibly homeless dude who isn't even into me. Hot damn. Yes, please. I was fantasizing about all kinds of dirty things during the tokenesque journey back to my car. It dawned on me very quickly that my chances of having sex in the near future had increased from 0% to whether or not Mike's car could survive the drive to my place if we were ever decide to hang out again. I looked up local mechanics and tow trucks just in case. I made a special trip to Safeway the following day to purchase condoms. I found a shopping basket and headed toward the aisle where I assumed condoms were kept. My anxiety reminded me that I am not mentally or socially equipped to make a purchase of just condoms, even if I paid for it through self-checkout during the mid-afternoon lull I was strategically counting on. Discretion, modesty, and decades of sexual shame directed at women prompted me to first wander through the produce section. I actually needed bananas and grabbed a few cucumbers, carrots, and then tossed in a package of pre-made guacamole, a box of brown sugar Pop-Tarts, and a few things to reduce the phallic-shaped objects piling up in my basket to further conceal the condoms. Dating is hard. That's what she said. I grabbed a box of a dozen condoms feeling optimistic and proceeded to argue silently, as to not draw attention, with this register that scanned items were already placed in the bagging area. Why is this still a thing? Fix this. I got home and unpacked the reusable shopping bag only to realize the condoms were not in the bag. I looked around the kitchen and the space near my door where I dropped stuff and piled up shoes. Nothing. I checked the car next because what I lack in parking skills, I make up for in taking turns too fast when driving alone. Like I don't know if I want to live or die and I need those little moments I'm not sure if the tires are going to stay on the ground. I feel a little lift or a slide and know, because I'm close to death, that I'm alive and like it. But the condoms were nowhere to be found. The receipt confirmed I paid for them. I was frustrated because I spent like $40 just to buy condoms and I didn't even get them home. If nothing else, I am a bee on a budget and I can't afford to go through that ordeal again. Reason told me to call the store. Reason is an a-hole. The call went like this. Thanks for calling Safeway. This is Timmy, or some other teenage-specific names adults never have. How can I help you? Yeah, hi, I just went through self-checkout and got home, and one of the items I purchased didn't make it home with me. Is there anything I could do? Oh, sure, I could check to see if you left it over there, he said, with the professional level of enthusiastic charm that is required for bullshit customer service calls. We usually keep stuff on the side when people forget things. What's the item? This is the part of the sitcom where Jack Morris pauses life at Bayside High School and speaks directly to the audience, telling them how I am about to heck everything up. Jim Halpert is making that face at the camera. Classic horror movie music starts playing at an ominously increasing volume that everyone but me and the fisherman from Jaws can hear. Boisterous women in movie theater audience are yelling, "Hang up the phone, you dumb bee!" This is real life, and I can't hear them. I imagine if I could, their cries would haunt me like Clarice and the Screaming Lambs. Plus, I am masochistic, or a moron, possibly both. Yeah, I say in my almost Bill Lumbergh tone. It was condoms? The pitch of my voice rose as I spoke the last word like a question, like I wasn't sure if I wanted to say it. I didn't. Timmy tried to put the call on hold before he started giggling. He was not successful. I am on hold. This is the part of the sitcom where Zach Morris pauses Bayside High. Jim and the shark from Jaws have teamed up and are both making that face through the office blinds. A woman screams, clapping between words, "Hang up the phone!" SpongeBob SquarePants comes to my defense, mocking their pleas for sanity, leaning forward, hands on their hips, eyes bulging. "Hang up the phone!" I don't. Timmy returned the call after a long enough pause to tell every employee in the store that some girl is on the phone because she lost her condoms and doesn't have the self-respect/budget to just eat the $12 and move on with her life, and she is actually calling the store. He is pleased to finally have a funny story to tell the girl in his math class he has a crush on her for years. "Hi, I don't see any..." He hesitates like he's searching for the word on Ask Jeeves in 1998. The page eventually loads and he continues, "Condoms over there, but you could bring your receipt to the customer service desk and get another box." I regain control of my life. "Yeah, that's not gonna happen, thanks." I hung up. "Finally!" screams the frustrated, fictitious audience of my life. I then, like any sane and reasonable adult who isn't still jaded about Bezos' tax evasion, ordered a box of 36 condoms from Amazon for about the same price as the dozen at Safeway to be delivered, discreetly packaged to my door/leasing office within 1 to 2 business days. And I mean, I am still bitter about Bezos, but the annual Prime account fee already went through for the year, so to cancel now would be like giving him the money, so I might as well use it and cancel my membership before the next billing cycle. I tell myself for the 4th year in the row. I laid in bed cursing my alarm the following morning when I remembered my pre-made splurgy guacamole and jumped up to make avocado toast before my early morning class. Insert millennial joke here. Everyone laughs except the millennials rolling their eyes and drowning in student loan debt. I took the carton of eggs, bottle of Tapatio, and guacamole out of the fridge. There, on the middle shelf, hidden under the guacamole, sat a silver box containing a dozen Trojan Ultra Thins. I fought the urge to walk away from the kitchen and meet my stupid fate in the middle of the busy street. Police investigating my death would note the open refrigerator door and its unlikely contents, nodding in unison that this was the cause of my untimely but expected and understandable death. And honestly, this is the kind of thing that has happened before. Enough times that I should have checked the refrigerator before I checked the floor of my car. But again, I am a moron. Clearly in optimistic denial about the kind of person I really am. I spent the next 30 minutes scouring the internet trying to figure out if condoms are still effective after being refrigerated for 24 hours, and realized that I am the only person, out of like 8 billion of us, y'all, that has needed to know this information. And I still don't. There was a customer service phone number on the back of the box, but I heard the lamb screaming and threw the condoms away. I got slapped by my parents and they took away everything from me. So my parents caught me at my boyfriend's yesterday and they went ape shit crazy. Now, before I tell this story, keep in mind, I'm 21. Now on to the story. So before anybody asks, yes, I did live with my parents, even though I'm 21. I wanted to save up enough money for me to be able to move out of the house and be able to live in a nice place. I was almost done paying off my car, which they took away now, so it was all pointless. So I was close to moving out. My relationship with my parents has always been rocky. We pretty much don't agree on anything because they are very, and I mean very, old school. They are also strict when it comes to me going out. They're strict to the point where I wasn't allowed to go out past 10 p.m. If I did, then I would get yelled at and they would take away the truck that I was working so hard to pay off. Again, keep in mind, I'm 21. Long story short, they're super strict and very old-fashioned, so I didn't like that, which is why I was planning on moving out soon after I was done paying my car, which was in 4 months. Well, yesterday, I skipped school. I know, super bad of me, to go to my boyfriend's so that he could help me look for a place. I had told my mom that I was in school because I didn't want her to know that I was actually looking at places and trying to figure out a way for me to move out sooner. So me and my boyfriend are sitting down in my truck when all of a sudden my dad opens my car door and slaps me across the face. Me and my boyfriend were so shocked to see my dad that we just stood there, which pissed my dad off more, and so he proceeded to slap me again and started to tell my boyfriend off. I couldn't figure out how the hell they knew I was at my boyfriend's till my mom told me that she was tracking my phone. Keep in mind, I'm 21. So I'm over here getting slapped across the face in shock, and my boyfriend is shocked as well. So we are just standing there while my parents are yelling at us. I finally woke up from my shock after a while, so I yelled at them to stop yelling like wild animals and to take me home. They did just that after they calmed down, but the walk to my parents' car was the most embarrassing thing ever because I felt like a 14-year-old getting picked up by her parents after she tried to sneak out. Again, keep in mind, I'm 21. I also felt even more embarrassed because pretty much all of his family witnesses me getting bee-slapped by my parents. I just couldn't believe my parents had actually done that shit. Honestly, please someone answer me and tell me if this is normal. So we got home and they proceeded to tell me off and go off on me. And I just kept packing up my stuff because I just can't stay in this place after that shit happened. I mean, come on, I got slapped in public by my parents. To make matters worse though, they took away the truck that they sold to me. The truck that I worked hard for just because I want to move out and live my life on my own after what happened. Note, before any of you ask, I can't call the cops on my parents for taking away the truck because my dumbass trusted them when they told me that they would put the car under my name as soon as I was done paying it. In the meantime, the car is under their name, which is why I can't really take legal matters until I show proof that I paid for the truck, which I'm sure will not do much help. Or will it? I'm asking any lawyers out there who are reading this. So now I'm stuck in a situation where I want to move out, but I'm not sure if I should because my parents pretty much kept all of my money and I don't have a car to take me places anymore. Moral of the story is truly be careful of those who you trust because even your own family will sometimes do you dirty. Also make sure that your crazy parents aren't tracking you. Another thing I forgot to mention is that they took away my social security number and my green card. All because I didn't pay for them and I'm ungrateful. B, I was 8 when I got my green card. How the heck am I supposed to pay you? Tinder date turns into clingy and aggressive guy. Okay, true story. I had been dating a guy for several years and after a number of tense and tough conversations regarding some issues we considered irreconcilable, we broke up. I was single for about 7 months, whole and healed. I understood why we broke up and believed that because of our mutual refusal to bend to the other person, it was for the best. I go on Tinder. I'm a busy gal and I wanted some food and some wine and an orgasm or two. I made that pretty clear in messaging with several guys, and then the humor and personality of one guy made me agree to the date. It was fun, he had a great personality, and the conversation flowed relatively easy. I went back to his place and we hung out for a while longer and I ended up going home. Only dinner and wine that night. Then we agreed to meet up again, and I'm thinking about sex. I make that pretty clear. Not in a I'm gonna use you for sex way, but in a I'm on this app because I'm horny and I prefer a real penis to what I've been using for 7 months way. Still, no sex. And the second date, it got a little deeper. Not like, tell me about your familial drama and deepest fears, just who do you want to be? What do you want to do in life? I realize we are pretty far off on the spectrum of our goals, and I don't think you have to line up on goals, but at least drive or ambition. I'm thinking, he's nice, but I don't think I want this to go anywhere. So I tell him that. He says it's fine. He knows what Tinder is for, and he gets it. He thanks me for my honesty, y'all. Fast forward a week or so of texting, schedule's not lining up, still no sex. I'm talking to a few other guys on Tinder, and then my ex after 7 months of running into each other for work-related stuff. We don't work together, but people we work with each of us. In the occasional text, he asked if I need any help moving. A mutual friend mentioned I'd ask for their help. He figured he would offer. Anyway, the ex can't make the move in a day, but comes the day after to help me mount my TV, set up my bed frame, and install a cat door. He was a little weird when he got there, but it was fine. And then, randomly, in the middle of us mounting the TV, he tells me that he's done a lot of thinking. He's talked to his closest friends and his dad about it. He's not big on asking for help, so that's quite the step. And he wants to know if I'm still single. He wants to take me on a date because he realized that some of the issues we broke up over either weren't issues anymore or weren't worth it if it meant he didn't get to have me in his life. Straight out of a damn rom-com this moment was. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm thinking, how is this real? People don't actually do this. You don't break up for 7 months and then get back together. I tell him I've been going on dates and there's a guy who I've been going out with specifically. It's nothing serious, but I don't feel good about just dropping him, and I don't feel good about just jumping back into a relationship we quit for good reasons. So I sent him on his way, after the rest of the installs were done, and I told him I'd think it over. I tell the Tinder guy as soon as we talk next. I'm not in the business of playing with hearts, and I don't want to feel like I'm cheating on someone, even though I'm technically dating no one. He says it's cool, he gets it. Then we do have sex. It's awful. He takes a medication that makes his parts not work all the way, and he was very porny about the whole encounter. In the let's trade positions every 2.5 seconds, and I'm gonna slap your ass hard without mentioning it, and choke you a little without mentioning it before. I faked an orgasm so it would be over, and then he said he couldn't get off without watching porn anyways. Okay, what a fun day. Tinder for the win. Several weeks go by, no sex, a few dates with each guy, lots of tough and intentional conversations with the ex. We come to an agreement. We decide a trial run of dating without sex for about a month and see if it could work. I tell Tinder guy, it's over, I'm going with the ex. He absolutely loses it. Sends me 20 texts in about as many seconds. Calls me several times and ends up telling me I'm not as strong as I think I am if I'm going back to him, as if he was an abusive asshole I fled from. Tells me I'm not even that attractive, that I'm weak-minded and pathetic. Continues texting me mean things, leaves me a very mean voicemail. Luckily, I had just moved and he only had my phone number. Probably stalked me on social media, but didn't have my old or new address. I ended up telling him that it had nothing to do with him, that I was sorry and it wasn't my intention, that we weren't even dating and there was someone out there for him, that we were better as familiar strangers. He really didn't like that and ended up telling me that he loved me and that I was the closest thing to it he'd ever met and that he would never move on. I've now been back with my ex for 8 months and we're doing great. Tinder guy has completely left me alone since the week he confessed his undying love to me, and I've moved on. I'll never date online again. I'll never recommend dating online to anyone. What a wild ride. I wish I made up that story because it caused more than a few tears and several scary nights as I lived alone at a time, and I didn't know how crazy Tinder guy really was. Maybe he'll kill my firstborn one day as retribution. Who knows? A date I will never forget. Honestly, I've never been a very open person. I've always been that super friendly and happy girl that seems like she has the perfect life, but no one really knows that deep. I think the only person who knows my entire story is my boyfriend, who is so great to me, and of course my little brother, who shared a lot of these experiences with me. There's a lot of things I have never had the courage to tell anyone, so here I am making my best effort. My parents got divorced when I was 5 years old and my younger brother was 2. This was really the beginning of everything falling apart for me. I know in this generation it's pretty common, but it was hard for a little girl who didn't understand why she had to go to mommy's 1 week and daddy's the next. I used to cry under my desk at recess and pray every night that they would get back together. My mom and I have never had a good relationship because of everything that has happened. She used to send me to school and daycare in shorts, no jacket, and sandals in the winter, not wanting my good clothes to go to my dad's. Keep in mind, I live in Canada. This is just one of the many things that led to the huge custody battle my mom started. My dad won and they settled on 50-50 custody, but my mom blamed a lot of it on me because I would email my dad telling him how much I missed him, and my mom took this as me taking his side. Of course, being so innocent, I always stuck up for her and thought everything was normal. My mom got remarried when I was 7. Her new husband was far from perfect. He supported us tangibly, but never emotionally. No matter how hard I tried, he was never proud of anything I did, and as a little girl, all I wanted was acceptance. He was also very aggressive, and we were terrified of him. My dad also had a girlfriend. She straight up neglected us. She had a child of her own who she barely had a relationship with. My dad worked night shifts as a refrigeration mechanic in order to support us, and she would lock herself in her room, refusing to talk to us when he was gone. I was around 7 or 8 years old when I started cooking dinner for my little brother and myself. I never told my dad because, again, I thought this was a normal thing. My dad was always telling me how he wishes my mom never gave up on him, and so he never gave up on his girlfriend, who he desperately believed could change for the better. Fast forward to 7th grade. I was 13 years old when my grandpa left my grandma and never told us. They had been married for about 30 years and he cheated on her. He moved out, never telling my brother and I, leaving us to think he was gone on a work trip and never came back. This was devastating, especially for me, because he was my best friend. My grandma became extremely depressed, having been with my grandpa since she was 16. We had to move in with her to help her take care of things, seeing as she had no idea how to do much. A few months later, my dad slipped and broke his ankle and then went to work and broke both arms. It was a year worth of surgeries and officially parenting my brother because my father physically couldn't. He had to quit his job because the nurse ended up being his ex-girlfriend who hated him, and there ended up being a malpractice which he didn't bother doing anything about. Being home all the time literally made him go insane. He developed so many mental health issues and ended up breaking up with his girlfriend. She was livid. She used to break into our house and we'd wake up to her doing dishes and stealing my clothes. No joke. One time we woke up to her in our shower, and when we tried to leave, she jumped on the hood of his car, butt naked. Fun times. She started hacking our phones and threatening my brother and I when my dad refused to give her his credit card information. Again, this affected his mental health and he started developing diagnosed schizophrenia and extreme paranoia, along with his previously diagnosed anxiety, depression. A date I will never forget. Honestly, I've never been a very open person. I've always been that super friendly and happy girl that seems like she has the perfect life, but no one really knows that deep. I think the only person who knows my entire story is my boyfriend, who is so great to me, and of course my little brother, who shared a lot of these experiences with me. There's a lot of things I have never had the courage to tell anyone, so here I am making my best effort. My parents got divorced when I was 5 years old and my younger brother was 2. This was really the beginning of everything falling apart for me. I know in this generation it's pretty common, but it was hard for a little girl who didn't understand why she had to go to mommy's one week and daddy's the next. I used to cry under my desk at recess and pray every night that they would get back together. My mom and I have never had a good relationship because of everything that has happened. She used to send me to school and daycare in shorts, no jacket, and sandals in the winter, not wanting my good clothes to go to my dad's. Keep in mind, I live in Canada. This is just one of the many things that led to the huge custody battle my mom started. My dad won and they settled on 50-50 custody, but my mom blamed a lot of it on me because I would email my dad telling him how much I missed him, and my mom took this as me taking his side. Of course, being so innocent, I always stuck up for her and thought everything was normal. My mom got remarried when I was 7. Her new husband was far from perfect. He supported us tangibly, but never emotionally. No matter how hard I tried, he was never proud of anything I did, and as a little girl, all I wanted was acceptance. He was also very aggressive, and we were terrified of him. My dad also had a girlfriend. She straight up neglected us. She had a child of her own who she barely had a relationship with. My dad worked night shifts as a refrigeration mechanic in order to support us, and she would lock herself in her room, refusing to talk to us when he was gone. I was around 7 or 8 years old when I started cooking dinner for my little brother and myself. I never told my dad because, again, I thought this was a normal thing. My dad was always telling me how he wishes my mom never gave up on him, and so he never gave up on his girlfriend, who he desperately believed could change for the better. Fast forward to 7th grade. I was 13 years old when my grandpa left my grandma and never told us. They had been married for about 30 years and he cheated on her. He moved out, never telling my brother and I, leaving us to think he was gone on a work trip and never came back. This was devastating, especially for me, because he was my best friend. My grandma became extremely depressed, having been with my grandpa since she was 16. We had to move in with her to help her take care of things, seeing as she had no idea how to do much. A few months later, my dad slipped and broke his ankle and then went to work and broke both arms. It was a year worth of surgeries and officially parenting my brother because my father physically couldn't. He had to quit his job because the nurse ended up being his ex-girlfriend who hated him, and there ended up being a malpractice which he didn't bother doing anything about. Being home all the time literally made him go insane. He developed so many mental health issues and ended up breaking up with his girlfriend. She was livid. She used to break into our house and we'd wake up to her doing dishes and stealing my clothes. No joke. One time we woke up to her in our shower, and when we tried to leave, she jumped on the hood of his car, butt naked. Fun times. She started hacking our phones and threatening my brother and I when my dad refused to give her his credit card information. Again, this affected his mental health and he started developing diagnosed schizophrenia and extreme paranoia, along with his previously diagnosed anxiety, depression, and ADHD. About a year later, he believed she was only threatening him with us because of him and thought hurting himself would save us. He tried to OD on his meds and ended up in the psych ward in the hospital. The doctors believe this did permanent damage to his brain. Of course, he was never the same after this. Because of the custody battle, I was always terrified my mom would take my brother and I away and we'd never see him again if she knew anything relatively imperfect about him. So I hid everything from her, and she never knew he was in the hospital. The entire year we stayed with my grandma on his days, and she'd drive us to the hospital to visit him. He tried so hard to spoil us and would make crafts for us to bring home every time we came to see him. This was so difficult for me because I had to go to bed every night without being able to say goodnight to him, and I had to go to my mom's the next day and lie about it. About a year and a half later, he could come home. This was a big change, and he had a new girlfriend by this time, who also ended up being crazy. Moving on about a year later, and he tried to hurt himself again, the day after my 15th birthday. This time, my brother and I were there. I remember him running up and down the stairs, angry, dazed, and refusing help. We called the police, and my brother and I hid upstairs under my bed in fear they would call Child Protective Services. Right below my room was the front door, and so we could easily hear everything. My dad refused to go with them, and they tased him to get him to cooperate. I remember his scream like it was yesterday. This was truly one of the hardest moments of my life. He ended up back in the hospital, and again, I had to lie. After 6 months, he was okay to come home. There were times where he asked me to sit in the closet until daylight because he swore someone would come hurt us. I was the only one he could talk to. My brother and grandma told him he was crazy, but I let him vent without fear of judgment. He was my best friend. He would come into my room and cry at 2 a.m., telling me how much he loved me and how sorry he was for putting me through so much. His happier days, he would come to my room and we'd bond over music. That was our thing, trying to impress each other with our new or old rap and R&B music we think we'd like. He supported every single thing I did, and as he could come to me without fear of judgment, I could do the same with him. He tried so hard. He was honestly the best dad I could have asked for. Yes, he put me through a lot, but I would do it over again if I could. November 10th, 2017. A date I will never forget. I was 17, turning 18 in 3 months to the day. I get to my dad's and my grandma is sitting with all my uncles on the couch. They all look devastated and I don't understand why. I put forms in my stomach and I start panicking, asking where my dad is. I start running around the house, hoping to find him sleeping in one of the rooms, to no avail. The words, "I'm so sorry, your dad passed away this morning," along with the crack in my grandma's voice and tears in her eyes that follows, burns in my memory. My brother instantly starts screaming and bawling in pain, but I try not to react to make sure he's okay. I can't help but to start screaming myself. I collapse to the floor and begin rocking back and forth. I remember sitting up and saying, "You're joking, right?" about 10 times, hoping it was just some cruel joke. After that night, I became numb to the feeling. I couldn't cry. I went to the funeral a few days later with a straight face. I was so hurt that I couldn't cry no matter how I felt. My best friend was gone, and it was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever been through. His crazy new girlfriend accused me of not caring when he passed because I wouldn't give her his stuff, and then didn't show up to the funeral, proving how much she really cared. On God, I almost fought her. I ended up telling my mom everything about his mental health, to which she started resenting me for hiding for so long. This pretty much ruined our relationship, which is the reason I moved out, and with my current boyfriend about 6 months ago. Side story, I had a different new boyfriend at the time who came to the funeral with me. A week later, I caught him cheating on me. I'm now 18, and it has been almost 2 years since he passed. I moved out of my mom's because of our relationship. I live with my boyfriend, who I met in April 2018. Thankfully, I had an amazing support group who helped me get back on my feet. I'm attending university in the fall, have started my own small business, and am working full-time. Instead of allowing my devastation to victimize me, I use them to motivate me. We all have rough patches, but I am confident that as long as you are motivated and persistent in succeeding, you can, through anything. How religion took 16 years from my life. It feels weird to do this, but I wanted to tell my story to people who might understand. I'm not professionally diagnosed, but I definitely have deep emotional and mental problems. Please don't tell me to seek out professional help. I want to have therapy so bad. I know that I need help, but for now, it's not possible. Because if I would ask my parents, they would tell me I should pray to God and He would fix the phase I have. But I assure you, as soon as I get the opportunity to seek out professional help, without my parents knowing I'm going to. As long as that is possible, I'm trying to figure out what is going on with me on my own. I did so much research during quarantine because I started to question my sense of self, especially my identity, and ended up having an internal crisis. I thought my issues weren't that deep because I never was physically abused and technically everything in my life was fine. I had clothes, food, and an overall loving family on the surface. And I played it down because I thought someone like me can't call their experiences trauma because I was never hit nor bullied. Generally, people like me because I was a massive people pleaser and still do it, but it's gotten better. Or at least they were nice to me. My parents supported me, helped me out when I needed money for something, and now there are two parts of me fighting. The one part that knows exactly how hecked up I really am, and the other part that tells me I'm exaggerating, that I should stop overthinking and stop being ungrateful. I'm torn, and I hope to find at least one person who kind of understands me. I feel like no one could ever get me because my trauma doesn't feel validated. Even though I found out that the part of the brain that is responsible for physical pain is also responsible for emotional pain. It still feels like I don't deserve to be heard because on the surface, everything was perfectly fine. And even though I talked to friends about it and they really helped me, they still told me to be grateful that I was well liked and no one directly hurt me. But I can't. I can't look at the positive aspects and live normally. It affects my life. It affects the person I am. It shaped me. I can't concentrate, and it got worse and worse with time. I have emotional outbursts that I learned to hide. I'm constantly on guard and don't feel safe in my house because I constantly think my parents could find out something that I'm hiding from them. I can never relax no matter where I am, except when I'm at my boyfriend's house and I know no one is going to be at home for a longer period of time. I feel like I'm not worth it. I feel ugly on the inside and outside, and I hate myself for coping by overeating. I'm not obese nor anything near it, but if I continue to eat how I eat without going to the gym, it could happen. I feel like I don't have to be the main mother figure to my sisters because my mom is so emotionally detached that I don't want them to think that what she does is real love. But the worst thing is how distant I feel from my emotions and myself. Does a myself even exist? Can I ever be it? I feel numbed out and drained, even though I do nothing all day but distract myself as good as I can. I feel like I never achieved anything and that I never will. Everything is so overwhelming and so hard to do, even the littlest homework or task. That's why I have a pile of work in my emails, and in the back of my mind that stresses me the hell out. But I just can't get myself to do it unless it has a deadline. And even then, I tend to it last minute. I feel weak, stupid, and misunderstood, and I think to myself, if that continues, all my good marks are going to drop, and then my parents are going to be a problem even on the surface. I'm doing my A-levels, class of 2021, in Germany. I was born here. Right now, and I just feel like I can't do it, and it is required from me that I get a prestigious degree, even though I would rather pursue a singing career. That was the longest introduction I ever wrote, but it needed to be at least written down somewhere. So what is the big deal? What am I complaining about? I'll try to create a chronological order and to remember everything crucial, but I yesterday realized that I'm missing blocks of time in my memories, even from recent times. It all started before I was born. My parents found each other through friends and got together. My mom lived in Kazakhstan before moving to Germany. I still don't exactly know why. And my father lived in Siberia before moving to Germany. His and my uncle's parents wanted to prevent them from having to fight in a war zone. And so they happened to live in the same city and they met. They got together and married. Then their neighbors invited them to go with them to a Russian-German evangelical church, and they ended up being members. Then I was born and everything was perfect. I was in church every Sunday from the moment my mother could leave the hospital. I never knew anything different. And as soon as I was able to be separated from my mother for 2 to 3 hours, I was with other children my age while the adults were attending the big service. And then the indoctrination started. I don't remember much from my time in church, or the cult as I call it now, from the time before I was 12. I only remember my time in school, which is very odd to me, but what do I know? I just remember being a people pleaser from the start and everything they taught us, but there aren't many clear memories. I was good at being a people pleaser. Now it's easy for me to approach people and connect on a surface level, but at what price? It's scary to me that my memories are so blurry. I don't even know who I was friends with or if I even had friends before the age of 10. I just remember that I wanted to be perfect in God's eyes. I wanted to be the perfect example of a girl who loves Jesus with all her heart. I wanted people in church to look at me and think I will make it far in my faith. And I achieved that, I think. But now I hate my past self for caring so much. So what were we taught there? God created the world, Jesus died for my sins and resurrected after 3 days. The Bible is the only truth and the only way I must live. Everything else is the devil's work. And even though they didn't say it in particular, but that our church is the only one to teach the real truth, and that every other church doesn't have God in it and immediately leads to hell and damnation. We were taught that the secular world was highly dangerous, and as soon as we were not following one of God's, the church's, rules, we were open for demons to attack us. And to make it short, you could sin by thinking something. So we were taught to somehow control our thoughts, but give full control to God over every little aspect in our lives, because everything is predestined and we don't have control about anything anyways. But we're still responsible for our actions somehow, and we still have a free will granted from God. While writing this, I really understand how contradicting this is, and it was a core belief of mine. When an adult who looked after you as a toddler tells you this, and there are 500 people who all believed it wholeheartedly, you try to justify it until you really can't anymore. And then everything shatters. Losing faith is something that was so deeply intertwined with your whole existence. It's like part of you just died. Even though you know how ridiculous it was believing in it, and you still feel stupid for not realizing it earlier. So in a nutshell, everything bad you do is because you're not saved. Because for someone who is really saved, it's physically impossible to sin no matter how, and automatically fully your fault. But when you achieve something, it's because God did it. You're never capable of doing or achieving something on your own. You're even unable to think the right, good way. So you're basically nothing and unimportant. But when you come to God, He gives you a purpose He specifically chose for you. You matter to Him. You're worthy of His love. And even though we were taught He is forgiving to everyone and almost everything, if you only follow Him everywhere He leads you. Another bizarre contradiction they teach little children: you're nothing, but with God, you're worthy. It makes me unbelievably mad that there are gradually more and more children who grow up believing this, who are taught that demons, the devil, and hell are around every corner to take them and torture them for eternity if they slip up one tiny bit. That's why I cried myself to sleep for years, begging God to forgive me for saying shit one time, or thinking in my head that I wanted to kiss a boy, not speaking of being attracted to a girl, because of course anything than straight marriage within my church is wrong. Yes, I was expected to have a boyfriend within church, and if he was in the world, I had to convince him to go to church, and he has to love God. We weren't allowed to date before 17, and of course, no premarital sex, but they took it further to prevent it at all costs. You weren't allowed to be alone in a room with your significant other before marriage, so nothing could possibly happen. Holding hands and short hugs were allowed when engaged. So if you grew up there, find a boyfriend and get engaged as fast as possible, because if you fall in love, it must be in God's plan. Because you want to F and then marry as fast as possible, you have to be together at least a year and then be engaged for at least half a year to have your first kiss ever, if you weren't sinful, in front of everybody, and when the pastor says, you may kiss the bride. We were taught that God wants us to be pure and learn to value our partner's personality. They told us girls that if we had a sexual relationship before marriage, you would never know if he really loves you or just wants your body. And that every guy outside church would never love us for our personalities. Another contradiction. These young adults rush into marriage not because they think, wow, I really value my partner as a person. No, they're sex-driven teenagers lying to themselves, which is absolutely not their fault, of course. No one is appreciating anything, and if they are, they're very lucky, because there were maybe 15 people in your age range that you could end up with. Girls were also taught to save themselves because we are like chewing gum, and if you're all chewed up, your godly future husband wouldn't want you, would he? We were told we were pure glasses of water, and if we sleep around before marriage, or even with only one person, every time dirt would fall into our pure water, and no one wants to drink dirty water. But the one thing that stuck with me that my mother, and later on, more older woman, told me was every time you sleep with a man, he takes part of your soul with him. That's why there should be only one guy from the start, so that you don't end up losing your soul. The thought of that terrified me to the core, and I believed it. Now I know it's bullshit, but it was in my head constantly for 5 or 6 years. We were told to cover up so guys don't want sin with their eyes and thoughts. Knee-length skirts and shorts were allowed, and I always hated how they looked on me. And you had to cover your belly and your shoulders at all cost. Cleavage was obviously not allowed, and so weren't tight clothes, only skinny jeans, not leggings, especially when you had a little bit more chest. And if you dared to show a tiny bit of skin, no matter how hot summer was, even if it was accidental, you'd get in trouble. I was in that godforsaken building almost every day, except for Wednesdays where we would meet up with our local little group of girls. There was a leader a few years older than us, and I'm glad mine wasn't as controlling as others and didn't force me too much to work in different groups in church and discuss what our beloved, I could vomit remembering him and his sleazy and narcissistic behavior, pastor taught us on Sunday. I was involved in worship, and my love for singing kind of saved me because that's the only thing I really did because I myself wanted it. I danced, which was okay. It was workout for me and not dancing for God when I think about it. I looked after toddlers once a month during service with other women. I was in the theater group, and when there was an event for teenagers, I was responsible for leading a group of other teenagers to organize it, so everything was done and standing where it belongs. I liked organizing, so I was lucky they just positioned me there, but it was still hella stressful. And I played the piano, which I didn't really enjoy. So there were the basics. I was heavily involved. With 12, you move from being with children to the big service, and you're finally old enough to be part of all the cool things the teenagers did. But then you're also constantly stressed out, which worsened every year because obviously school got harder, but also the church demanded more and more, and suddenly you were thrown into highly responsible tasks, which drained you. When I was 14, I started constantly having headaches. I started drinking coffee because I was exhausted from not being able to sleep, being stressed out and constantly worried that someone would find out my secrets. And now I need a very strong one for it to work. Because in school, I was someone else. I had a different name in my school, my real name. In church, the pastor required my parents to introduce me with a very faraway nickname from my real name because it sounded like a name in the Bible that an evil person had, and if I'd be called that, it would curse me. I did and said what I wanted. It increased gradually because I still tried to be myself, which you could be in church. No. In school, but obviously couldn't do that because no one can. I thought I was being myself in school, and maybe that was myself when I was 14, but I still was the most severe case of a people pleaser. And I always ended up in dependent, toxic friendships because I could never say anything against them. I had no one else who was close to me, so that also hurt me even though I didn't notice at the time. People abused my kindness because in church they told us we had to be nice, and I could do that at least. So I held on to being nice to everyone, helping everyone, and inviting people to come to church who were remotely close to me, which still embarrasses me the most, but you get in trouble when you're not inviting people. I'm so glad I was in a very accepting class. No one was ever really bullied, just mocked for a few things maybe, which I was, for being in that church. And they told me early on, it's a cult. You believe in crazy shit. Stop going there. But we were taught that people who were afraid of the truth always say that. School was kind of a safe place for me, even if I had toxic friendships and got hurt a few times, because we live about 25 kilometers away from church, the cult, and nobody I knew from there could see me. And even though we were taught that God could see everything and is always reading our thoughts, I didn't feel very watched. I was scared shitless when I wore something in school we weren't allowed to wear in church, and I thought I saw someone I knew, so I felt better in school than at home. And that's why my definition of home is something entirely different than that of people who grew up in an emotionally safe home. So what was living in my home like? I'm the first daughter of 3, and therefore my father's precious firstborn. I learned really fast that just keeping quiet, smiling, and doing what I'm told is the best way to avoid any more stressful situations. I hated every form of confrontation, and I still do. When I was young as 3, my father threatened to hit me with a belt, and did it a few times, but I stopped misbehaving or questioning, so no one yelled at me anymore, and no one told me to stand in a corner without looking. So I just learned to not show my emotions at all at home, because emotions cause trouble and distress. They also told us that God and our own intellect, which is controlled by God, must lead us. Emotions come out because of the devil. My father was in control of everything, and to this day, he is still extremely sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, etc. You name it. And he still thinks I have exactly the same opinions as him. He is very critical of my boyfriend, but because he puts on a facade in front of my father as I do, my father likes him. My parents, more my father, still don't want me to have anything premarital, even though they are less strict than before. So yeah, I can't ask for birth control because then they would not let me see my boyfriend. As I said, my father is very controlling and has a very high opinion of himself. Because he is providing for our family, he doesn't have to do anything regarding the house. This is on the women and the 4 girls in the house, because that's what God made us for. Popping out babies, cleaning, and cooking. But I still have to get a degree and a high-paying job. And then I ask myself, what do you want from me? What? In church, we learn that you have to find a job that gives you enough time to be as active as possible in church, while giving birth to as many children as possible and managing your whole household completely alone. Because your husband is by God's law above you and there to lead you. How remarkably generous of you to lead me, because I can't decide on anything ever due to always thinking I don't have control anyways. That's why I need to plan everything obsessively and always know and control what's going on. I idolized my father until the realization that we don't have any emotional bond slowly reached me until it hit me hard. I had to organize my phone a certain way and delete messages so in case he would want to go through it, he wouldn't find anything. He wanted me to be his perfect show daughter who has good marks and serves God with all of her existence, and he really did that. In front of him, I am what he wants me to be. I don't know what my mother wants. She just does what my father tells her and silently agrees to what he has to say. Maybe I learned to behave in that way because she did. I'm honestly sorry for her because she never had a chance to study anything that could make her independent because of moving to Germany at 17 or 18 and not being able to speak the language very well. I could cry because no matter how brutal this sounds, her life is over in a way. She is what I never want to be. Whenever they told us how our future will look like, I had a kind of panic that I never felt before. At the time, I suppressed that, but when I think back, my heart rate goes up and I feel like I need to run as fast as I can. And that's why I hate to be dependent on someone. But weirdly, I still end up in situations where I'm highly dependent. Another thing that I can maybe explain now is my reaction to my grandfather's death. He was more of a father to me than my own, and his wife's home, which I also deeply love, felt safe. When I was 11 years old, my grandmother, my grandfather's wife, passed away because of cancer. And I was never allowed to see her while she was sick, nor to attend the funeral. And in that time, I already saw my grandpa rarely. When my parents told me my grandma passed away, I cried one time. I know that I was sad, but I somehow can't recall my immediate emotions from that day. And I thought I'm glad that I still have my grandpa. But he passed away 3 months later, and I wasn't able to see him during those months. When my father, emotionlessly, told us that his father also passed away, I felt nothing. I didn't cry, no reaction at all, and then I didn't think about it for years. But when I was 14, all of a sudden, all of the emotions I should have felt when I was 11 crushed me harder than ever. It was like reliving the day I was told he was gone forever for almost a year, and I was so confused. Why now? Why didn't I feel anything back then? Because my brain was already way too stressed for an 11-year-old and just didn't process properly. Then 3 years later, something triggered my memories and the horrors began. When I was 16, it hit me again because I found out he committed suicide through my cousin. Back to the cult. So am I still there? No. My parents realized how manipulative literally everything about it was, and without telling anyone there, childhood friends I grew up with included, we went there one last time, and on Sunday, the 23rd of September, 2018, we drove away and never came back. And many others left too. We still meet every Sunday, and I still sing there because I don't want to confront my parents. I really don't want to be there because every time we're there, I'm not really there. I'm just a shell that moves around. During the preaching, which a few men do in turns, I'm always completely zoned out and can only concentrate for a bit if I really try. I don't know what that is or that means, but I absolutely hate it because I can't control it. And sometimes I'm just sad for no reason. I still can't sleep and still get a massive headache and can't stand up properly without strong coffee. I still eat too much stuff. I really shouldn't, and I feel bad for every little bit I eat, but I can't stop. And it also affects all of my relationships, especially with my boyfriend. He sometimes doesn't understand, but he still comforts me and is patient, which I'm really grateful for. And something that comes to mind only now is that my father used to completely lose it when I had a bad mark. I was afraid to come home and always started crying before even telling him. And then he would shout even more, beat the table with his fist, and tell me to stop crying. Now I can control if I'm going to cry or not when something upsets me, and if I want to show my emotions or not. Being a very good liar was essential, and it still is. When my father is mad at me because I don't do the dishes, he still gets very impulsive and shames me because if he works and gives me food and clothing, it's just disrespectful to leave the dishes for too long. And when he stands beside me and doesn't stop while I do the dishes, I just nod my head and say yes. It's the only way to avoid more pain at all cost. There are these moments, but also the ones where he tries to talk to me and ask how I am, and then he tells me how he loves me, his firstborn princess. He tells me that I'm the best daughter someone could have, and that he's so proud of me. And I just smile at him and say thank you. But on the inside, I think, if you really knew who I really am and what I did that you don't have, you wouldn't talk to me anymore. He is proud of the daughter he created for himself that I still am in front of him. And also my mother tries to get closer to me after 16 years of distance and letting the church raise us. And the only thing I would tell her if I was honest for a few seconds in the midst of all the lies I protect myself with, I'm sorry, but it's too late. I don't have any emotional connection to my parents, and I never had. The first 16 years of my life were partly wasted. I felt like someone took my childhood from me. Even my memories are blurry. And I know it's technically not my parents' fault, but I want to blame them so badly. And it makes me so mad that I was born because of the church, because they convinced my father to have children. I was cursed before I even existed. And still, I can recall a few beautiful memories of things I did with my friends there. The sleepovers, summer camp, singing together, playing hide and seek in the big building. All of us connected through our fear of the dangerous outside world and hell. There is no moment in my life where I wasn't afraid that some adult could dream or feel. They taught us that God could reveal things about people to you when you have a strong connection to the Holy Spirit, that I was a dirty sinner that acted differently in school. And it was so frightening because when it's out that you messed up, you can't attend certain rituals like the Holy Communion, and that's when people know. They see that you're not taking part in it, and the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, premarital sex. When a couple did it and someone found out, it made sure by the authorities that in a week, everyone knows. And I wanted to avoid people thinking that at all costs, so I was very aware and on guard at all the time. I made sure I had a different app also open while watching Vampire Diaries on my phone, because there you could switch faster, so my mother or father, who still just burst into my room whenever they want to, would never know I would watch something the devil created. My parents and everyone in the church who was responsible for me always tried to shelter me and get anything with a bad influence away from me. But I still watched what I wasn't allowed to. The internet and myself raised me when my beliefs started to break away. People like Jenna Marble taught me things parents should teach their kids. I educated myself on so much stuff I missed out on and started to build my own opinions and morals from 14 to 16. Basic knowledge like it's okay to not believe what your parents believe was so new to me. And now I just want to move out and study something so I'm always safe. I can't wait for the day where I'm finally going to be financially independent and don't have to rely on my father. Wow, it feels so good to put that all in words. When you watch until now, you must be really, really bored. But thank you. I appreciate your attention greatly. Greatly. Greatly.
Gorgeous girl. Junior, 17 years old. Math. Third hour. I walk into my new class like I did for all my new classes. Nothing special, but I was lucky enough to get 5 to 6 of my friends sitting around me. Most of that class was spent playing video games on our laptops because our teacher was just awful at teaching. Almost as if he tried to teach assuming that the class already knew the material. Like what? How are we supposed to know how to do the problem if you've only shown one example and had already erased it? Ugh, he sucked. I could write a whole post about only him, but I have to stay on track because it's about to get interesting. This class was full of a whole range of students, so I'd probably say there were 4 groups that would stick together and talk. The room was kind of separated in quadrants. Our group was in the back far corner and consisted of jocks, a few gamers, and not to sound self-centered, but I would say more quote-unquote popular kids. Not that it matters much, but, well, actually, yeah, that's kind of important, so remember that. To our left were a few of the rednecks and louder kids, but just between each other so they didn't disrupt class or anything. In front of us were kids that were pretty quiet and focused more on math than talking. And finally, in front of us were this group of girls who were all kind of feminists with a few super feminists. When I say super feminist, I mean 2 of them literally said they hate men and white people, so I don't know what else to tell you. These girls were all pretty cool, besides when it came to the political stuff. But I wouldn't say we were really friends with these girls. Well, I guess most of them. There was this one girl who I'll call R that sat right in front of me. R was absolutely gorgeous, so me being me, I would often ask her for a pencil or a question so I could talk to her. She didn't seem to be as enthusiastic about me as I was about her, but I thought maybe I wasn't on my game or something. I was 17. Give me a break. We were also in totally different cliques, so we didn't know each other very well. I had heard things about her and obviously knew her name, but that was pretty much it. Everyone said she was really nice and sweet, and man, did she live up to it. The days went on, but this little thing never grew past classmates. R was just the girl that sat in front of me. Every day I'd go to class, maybe say hello, find my seat, and that'd be it. She wasn't any more than an acquaintance, and that was fine with me. One day I came into class, and sitting in my seat was this girl who I hated, and immediately started arguing with me about political stuff. What was the argument about, you ask? Not important. The thing was, though, that this little back and forth turned into a 5 versus 1 when all her friends joined in. Unfortunately, I was the only one in my friend group in my class that day, so I was getting cornered fast. Even my math teacher was getting into it. As tensions rose, so did the emotions. The argument was growing uncontrollably and eventually veered off into a path that had a lot to do with depression and anxiety. This topic was super sensitive for me because I was on medication and hadn't told anyone about it. I'd like to say that at most 3 people knew and swore never to tell. I did a pretty good job of hiding it, so when they started talking to me about the subject like I was some ignorant a-hole, I got pretty upset. This is the moment that R started talking and was being super defensive, and she seemed really knowledgeable of the subject. That didn't change the fact that we were just going off at each other. Gosh darn, that girl really ticked me off. She made everything I said seem like I didn't care about people on medication. Eventually, the argument led to me saying something along the lines of, you shouldn't have to depend on pills. They should just help your bettering process. R took it as something completely different, thinking I said, if you take pills, then you aren't really you. She took it really, really hard and called me some names and broke down crying. Stunned, I stopped myself from saying too much more because it took me back so much. I'd never seen R so full of emotion, so I knew maybe I hit a little too close to home for her. I've made girls upset before, but not like that. The arguing stopped pretty soon after, and soon the bell rang. Everyone got up and simply went to their next class. On to something else like nothing had ever happened, but not for me. I was feeling weird about the whole situation for the day and couldn't even really sleep. Is she depressed too? I asked myself. I never met anyone else who struggled with what I did. The next day, I woke up with it on my mind, so I knew I had to fix the little mess I made. When I came to class the next day, something was different. The seat in front of me was now empty. R had requested to change seats so I could no longer just tap her shoulder like I used to. This little variable was enough for me to leave it alone. I figured if she couldn't even sit by me, then she sure as hell doesn't want to talk to me. This continued for like 2 weeks before I couldn't stand it anymore and finally decided to message her about it. The weird thing was, when I asked her about it, she said she didn't even remember the argument. I'm not the brightest, but I know you don't just forget a moment with a heightened emotion like that. I wanted to press, but instead, I told her to forget about it. Things weren't ever the same with us, and we were left instead with this awkward, hate-filled aura that floated around us when we were around each other. I figured that was all it was ever going to be, or so I thought. Fast forward to the start of senior year, the very first day. I was pretty excited and ready for all my new classes. Each class was filled with more and more of my friends all the way up to my last class, foods/nutrition. It was 2 hours long. As I waddled in a little late, and in front of me were only a few tables to sit at, 3 of the 5 of them were completely full and had a few people I knew, so I was kind of screwed. I looked to my left. There sat 2 super weird kids I did not get along with. Guess that's not an option. I looked right towards the last table and see 2 girls I don't really know, so I start heading that way. But at the last second, I had noticed I must not have seen the third person at the table. It was R. Immediately, I turned around, thinking there's no way in hell I'm going to sit by her. Realizing the other table was possibly the worst seat in the history of the world, I looked down, sighed, turned, and sat down at R's table. You could actually feel the uncomfortableness as we made eye contact and both looked down. That's exactly my luck to be put in the situation. Then guess what? The teacher tells us that we'd better like our seats because they are permanent. Wow. We were both unhappy, but there was nothing to be done. All there was to do was to suck it up and get over it. As days went past, our little frizz sort of died out a little. We definitely still hated each other, but started talking again. We were at the same kitchen for cooking too, so we didn't really have a choice. Our conversations eventually grew more and more until one day something happened that changed everything. Our class often had times to go on your computer and do things like a worksheet or something. While I worked, I always had music playing in my headphones. Always. I didn't listen to what everyone else did though, and it kind of sucked. Actually, no. It really sucked. Listening to punk rock music wasn't really common. I liked bands like With Confidence, Sleeping with Sirens, All Time Low, and a few others. It was hard finding music like that when no one I knew actually liked it. I mean, there were songs that I would show my friends and they'd end up liking it, but never felt like someone actually had the same taste in music as me. I'm a hopeless romantic, so don't cringe when I say I've always dreamed of meeting that girl that likes my music and is, like sort of a badass and just understood exactly what that kind of music does to you. But let's push that thought aside. It was just some backstory for what's coming up. I had to start a new paragraph because thinking about it just gave me the chills. Sorry, I'm writing this trying to get all that stuff that goes through my brain. I don't know why I tell stories like this, but if you've made it this far, then maybe it's not too bad. Nothing was out of the ordinary on that day. It was boring and just kind of, there. 2 hours left is all I could think. I was already sick of school and each day was getting worse. Teacher says to us that we have free time to work on homework, so I pull out my computer and immediately grab my headphones. The homework was table-based, so we had to work together, and at this point, R being at the table didn't bother me much, so I decided to ask her for help. She looked a little confused. We didn't really talk at this point, but still. She helped me anyways. A few minutes in, I noticed she had headphones in too. I hesitated and asked her what she was listening to. She almost hesitated too, seeming embarrassed. I smiled a little smile, and she was like, well, they aren't that popular, so you might not know any of their songs. I peeked over and took a look at the screen. It might sound stupid and not that big of a deal, but seeing her playlist and knowing almost all of the songs, I could not believe it. I looked at her and I was like, what? You know these bands? Her eyes locked with mine and she said, you know these bands? I don't even know how to put it into words. It was like lightning. The rest of that class, we showed each other song after song after song, talking about them and pointing out the best parts only pushed us deeper and deeper into our own little bubble. We had been so lost in each other that sure enough, the bell goes off and we didn't even notice. We were both taken a little off guard, so we just sort of hurried and went home. I couldn't even sleep that night because the rest of my night, she was all I could think about. I mean, where can I even start? This girl drove me crazy all this time, and all of a sudden, this? I eventually fell asleep. and all I remember the next day is being crazy nervous. What if I tried to talk and she didn't care anymore? I guess I didn't mind much since we didn't really like each other, but as soon as I got there, it picked up just where we'd left off. R said something to me though that I'd never forget. Once we got back into music, she had this frustrated look on her face when I showed her a new song. Apparently, she'd already heard the song and really liked it. Then out of nowhere, she goes, "Ugh, why does it have to be you that likes all this music?" At that moment, I knew she was thinking the exact same thing I was. I had a dumb smile on my face for so long after that. Each day got more and more interesting. I learned that she used to think that I was a major a-hole who only cared about myself, and I told her I thought she was a B, so it actually worked out kind of well. Every time she opened her mouth, it was like angelic music I couldn't get away from. Whether we were sharing headphones to hear new music, or even just nonstop laughing about something dumb in the kitchen, there wasn't a single dull moment with her. It even got to the point where I actually wanted to go to school in the morning. The days where she was absent felt so empty to me. It was so disappointing, and I think the other girls even noticed it too. I always wondered if she felt the same way when I was gone. There's no way a girl like that would think of me like that, I thought to myself. I kept asking myself this until I learned that I was taking a class trip and was going to be gone for a few days. The day before the trip, I said to my table that I'd be gone for 2 days, and R immediately had a face of just, I don't know really, sadness? It was so genuine, and she was like, "What? No," but tried to play it off right away after. I smiled at her, and she looked back, and it was like we could read each other's minds. From that point on, I knew we were both in the situation of being drawn to each other with nothing that we could do about it. I never officially said it, but I had the biggest crush on this girl, and I think she had one on me too. There was only one thing that was keeping us apart, something that was way more than enough for either of us to act on. She had a boyfriend. She started dating him in the summer, and they were pretty in love. This guy had been her first everything, so I knew it wasn't some random schlub. Honestly, the guy was kind of a D to her. He'd come to class, pull her shirt up if her cleavage was showing, and just sort of talk down to her. You could see it in her eyes when he hurt her, and it was hard to watch sometimes. I wanted to try to comfort her, but I knew it was pointless. I think he caught on to me and her talking and would stand in between us, even halfway through our conversation, so we'd have to stop. I tried to say as much as I could to her before he'd come to her at the end of class. He was usually the end to our fun every day, but I didn't mind. Even talking with her for a minute made my day. Remember how I said R was really sweet? Well, she was, but she had a side to her I never knew about. Our teacher sometimes played favorites and would let some kids on their phones and others not. On this day, she decided that R was the one to not be on her phone. In less than a second, R had this fire in her that I could almost feel just by looking at her. She snapped back and they got into an argument that lasted only a few words. Those arguments started occurring often, and to be completely real, they made me like her even more. I'd argue with a teacher or two if I knew they were being unfair, and apparently she did too. I don't think I've even told her that I liked it, which sucks, but there's not much I can do now. As the semester drew to an end, I realized things with this girl would never turn into anything. I'd gotten a girlfriend, her boyfriend and her had gotten even closer, and we weren't going to see each other in class anymore. The days that we had were incredible, but at the same time so depressing because we both knew that it was going to end. I don't know how we both knew, but somehow we did. As we said our goodbyes, I'd always hoped maybe it wasn't our last goodbye, that maybe once, just once, we'd be able to talk again. I haven't talked to her since, and it's been about 3 years. Although we didn't talk, I never lost hope. I saw her at a party about a year after, but we didn't talk to each other. I looked up to see if she was looking at me a few times, but she never was, so I didn't think to approach her. As a hopeless romantic, I thought to myself, maybe it was like one of those movie scenes where I look up, and as I look away, she looks, and we never get to have the connection I was dying for. That R wants just as bad as me to look. I wish I knew the answer to that, but I don't know if I ever will. I still listen to the songs she showed me and wonder if she listens to mine. I'm left sitting here with this empty feeling, and I don't know what to do with it. I guess that's why I went to Reddit to let go of my thoughts and quit bottling everything up. So yeah, that's basically my story. A guy and a girl who hated each other that never thought they'd end up being friends. I know it doesn't have a happy ending, but not every story is a fairy tale. Maybe one day, but not today. I wish today. She made my heart melt in a way I'll never forget. And that's enough for me.
I was asked to a threesome, and I declined. I was 16 years old and was a swimming instructor at the local outdoor pool during the summer. My job basically was to teach little kids ages 6 to 10 how to float. It was a job where I had to do very little for getting some good cash, so like any teenager looking to make a quick buck, I jumped on it. I had a clock-in time of 3:45 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. Fairly bad time to be swimming in my opinion, because summers in India are brutal. But anyway, in those 2.5 hours, me and another instructor had 2 classes of about 30 kids each. The pool had an adjoining deck where the parents could stand and watch their kids flap around in the water. In the second class, we had 2 kids who were pretty good swimmers, and I always wondered why they were in my class from the start of the summer. To clarify, the local pool place had 2 pools, a small one where kids who were starting out had to practice paddling and floating, and a full-size pool where the kids who were a little older and knew how to swim would practice. I, being a first-time instructor, was allocated the small pool for obvious reasons. Anyways, the kid who knew how to swim would be shifted to the big pool by their parents with the recommendation of instructors from my pool later in the summer. When I talked to my partner/other instructor about these kids, he told me that they were the bigger pool last year, but their moms got them shifted to the pool back this summer. Weird moms, I thought, but shrugged it off. For changing rooms, we instructors had a small outhouse kind of building, which barely had a shower and a loo, but no doors or curtains. The changing rooms also had small ventilators through which if someone wanted to, could see the person showering. Pretty sucky, but it was, after all, a small pool place. After 2 classes, both the instructors were off the clock, and the next set of instructors would come in for the last 2 classes of the day. Every day when I'd be stepping off the pool, I would talk to the kids' parents about the class and how their kids did, how they could improve, etc. I would make it a point to talk to every parent who wanted to have a word before going to the showers, so that they could be on their way and I could take a shower in peace without making anybody wait for me. The mom of those 2 kids, however, were not interested in that. They would make it a point to wait every day for me to finish, come out of the showers, and then talk to me about anything except their kids. They gave their kids smartphones so that they wouldn't interrupt. It started getting weirder by the day, and I made it a point to keep recommending them to shift their kids to the bigger pool just so that they would get off my back. I couldn't just complain to my supervisor because it wasn't anything extreme, just a little weird. The moms were obviously not willing to listen that their kids ready for the big pool and that they were still learning to paddle and they needed my help. One day after my class, while I was showering, I could see these 2 moms snickering outside the outhouse and looking at me. They couldn't see the whole estate because we blocked off the walls of the ventilator, so you couldn't really stand next to the ventilator, but you could still see the face of the person showering. I was thoroughly grossed out and just wanted to go home. I didn't even bother to acknowledge them and just walked towards the parking lot. I was standing by my bike, putting on the helmet, when I felt a tap on the shoulder. And who would it be but one of the moms? Let's call them M1 and M2. M1. Hi sir, how are you today? We wanted to talk to you about how our kids did today. Me. Disgusted look. They did fine. Like I said, they don't need to be in my pool. They could shift to the other one. M2. No. They still need you. Plus it gives us a chance to look at you while you teach them. Me. What? M2. I mean, we could still see how good they are doing in the class. Me. Like I said, they are good swimmers now. They don't need me. Just wanting this weird conversation to be over. M1. Okay. Actually, we were thinking if we could talk to you about something else too. We really need help from you. Me. Look, ma'am, I'm just trying to go home and I'm doing everything I need to for your kids. M1. No, we need you to help us moms. Me. Help you how? M1. We want you to teach us how to swim. We really want to learn and be able to swim with our little angels. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. I only teach kids. M2. Can't you make an exception for us? We'll make it worth your time. She starts to stroke my arm, and both of them take steps towards me, coming uncomfortably close. I realize exactly what she's implying. At this point, the parking lot was pretty empty because all the kids and their parents had left, and so had my partner. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, this isn't something that I'm interested in, and can you please not touch me? M1. Don't be ridiculous. We just wanted to learn swimming and do some other things with you. Me. Stop it, ma'am. Do you realize I'm 16 years old and this is illegal and you both would be charged as pedophiles? M2. Oh, come on. You don't look 16. You are lying. Do you really not want us? You always wait after class and talk to us alone. Me. Ma'am, that's my job. I'm supposed to do that. This is making me uncomfortable. If you both don't leave me alone, I'm going to complain to my supervisor and call the police on you. Both of them started squirming and took some steps back. I took the chance to start my bike and rushed away. As soon as I got home, I called my partner and told him exactly what happened. He told me to calm down and told me that we'll talk to the supervisor tomorrow. We never did talk to the supervisor because apparently after I left, both of the moms canceled their kids' membership and they never returned. I didn't really want to pursue the matter, just forget about it. Years after, the Chad in me still says that I could have had a threesome when I was 16 and I'm an idiot who passed it up. But at that time, I was pretty traumatized and didn't know what to make of the whole situation. Also, I'm pretty sure I'm missing out a few lines from the conversation, but I just don't remember quite a bit of it. This is all I remember. Anyways, thanks for reading if you did, and again, discount any mistakes that I might have made. Let me know what you think. My friends went missing when I was 6. I guess to start off, I should introduce myself. My name is Melissa, I'm 16 years old, and around 10 years ago, 4 of my friends went missing. I remember the day clearly, yet some parts are all fuzzed up. It's strange how the mind works. Anyways, I was 6. My dad, older brother Matthew, and younger brother Liam were driving to a birthday party. It was hosted at this old knockoff Showbiz pizza place. We lived in a tiny town in Utah, so this was really the only place for kids to hang out. A cheap place for parents to drop off their demons to occupy them. My brother, who was 15 at the time, worked there as a waiter while my dad worked the day shift. When we were really little, my dad would sometimes let one of the managers babysit us, mostly me. I remember him well. He always wore plaid and flannel and almost was always working on something. There was another manager too, but he was very distant. He disliked kids despite having his own. He never talked much. I'm getting off topic. Anyways, the second we pulled into the semi-crowded lot of the pizza place, I hopped out. I threw the glass doors open and ran into the main show area. There was the big stage with bright multicolored lights showcasing 3 classic animatronic animals. There was confetti on the tiled floor and glitter on the tables. I was very quick to find my friend, the birthday boy. He had russet ginger hair and brown eyes. He was 2 years older than me, turning 9 that day. I don't remember his name as my brain repressed this day so much. Mostly him. We were close, I knew that. I probably just wanted to forget to ease the pain. I remember grabbing him into a hug and talking for a while as the other members of the party filled in. There were 5 of us in total. I remember the others, but not much. Only key features. The oldest, I believe, was the boy with dark brown hair, and he was tall. Like really tall. I remember something strange with his eyes. They were cold, yet so warm and welcoming to us. The other boy, I think, was the opposite. He had long, messy, dark hair and was really short. I think his name started with a J, Jeremy or Jamie maybe. I don't even remember if he was a girl or a boy. There was a girl though. I remember her well. She has honey blonde hair and I think green or blue eyes. She was hyper and sweet. I think she called me Melly Bear. I do know she had a puppy, a little yellow lab named Fetch. Strange name, I'm aware. Those were all of them. The 5 of us, great friends. The day was a blur. Talking, eating pizza, playing, watching shows, playing those crappy arcade games, kid stuff. But the shit hit the fan pretty soon. A rabbit costume, I think. It had to be a costume. It moved too fluidly. Too human. It scared me. It was yellow with fluffy golden fur and green eyes. It had a purple bow tie and matching buttons. It was terrifying. It said that there was a tradition for birthday parties here, that the Golden Bunny would take the kids to a special birthday room and give them gifts in a private performance. He said he would take us one at a time. The ginger hair boy went first, then the tall one, then the short one, and then her. The honey-haired girl. As he led her out, I swear I could hear him whisper, "Fetch isn't dead, dear. He's with the others. I'll show you him." Minutes passed. After a while, I grew impatient and went to go investigate. I saw the rabbit come out of a room, moving swiftly to the parts and services room near the stage. I walked up to the door, which he had closed, and knocked gently. I heard nothing. Gripping the handle, I twisted it and pushed it inwards, or so I tried. The door was jammed tight. I pushed as hard as my little 6-year-old body could, and finally the door gave way. I caught myself on the slippery tile, the door nearly shutting behind me. Thankfully, there was a bit of light, letting me see a little. The floor was slick with something dark and warm. I didn't realize it right away. I didn't see the huddled mounds. I didn't see the blood on my hands and the blood splattered in the wall. I only saw him. He was lying simply against the wall, hugging his fox plush close to his blood-stained red shirt. I remember crawling over and shaking him, trying to get a response. I remember the next bit fully. I'll write it as I remember. "Hello? Are you awake? Melissa?" "Yes, you idiot. Why are you asleep? Mel, you shouldn't be here." He had reached to gently touch my face, blood dripping from his mouth. I only then saw the red, the wound on his stomach. "You're bleeding. Hold on, I could get help." "No, you can't." "But..." "No, Melissa, I'm a goner." He paused to cough some. He weakly lifted the old fox plush to my shaking hands. "Take care of him, will ya?" "You..." "Shh, it's okay. Find him for me. For us. All right?" He was slipping out of consciousness. "Please, hang on." He went limp. I wanted to scream. I couldn't. I couldn't do anything but get up and run as fast as I could. I locked myself in the restroom for a few hours. I washed the blood from my clothes and hands, though it stained a little. I stumbled back into the room afterwards. I'm not sure why. The light illuminated the room fully. There was blood splattered on the floor. Streaks indicated something being dragged. Signs of a struggle were present. I screamed. The police came soon after, but they couldn't find a thing. No bodies, no weapons, no fingerprints. I cried all day. I didn't answer questions. I clung to my brothers. Before we left, I took his hoodie. I still have it in my closet to this day. I remember seeing his mom before we left. I ran to her and hugged her so tight and sobbed harder than I thought possible. It was strange how I felt better clinging to her rather than my own mother. I told her what happened, about the rabbit leading them away. I questioned my dad about a rabbit suit, but he didn't know a thing. There was no birthday party thrown for kids there. There was no private performance for birthday kids. All of it was a lie. I've been putting it off for years, doing minimal research on who this killer could be, but now I feel as if I should dig deeper. I'll go look for clues and keep you guys updated. Wish me luck. I see a boy whenever somebody dies. I was 5 when I first met him. I could still remember it. We were driving to the grocery store in a big van. My dad at the wheel and my mom arguing with my older brother over an M-rated video game he wanted to buy. The commotion started to make my little sister cry. I sat in the back seat all by myself, trying to ignore it all as I played on my Game Boy, but it was too noisy and hot to focus on it. Finally, I gave up and decided to lie down on the seat, taking a nap before we got to the store. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up, I was really hot. Sweat was dripping down my scalp and my mouth felt like sandpaper. Sitting up, I rubbed my head and tried to remember where I was, only to realize that the car was parked near the grocery store entrance. My family, no doubt caught up in their arguments, must have forgotten about me. I wasn't alone in the car, though. I realized as I noticed there was a strange figure sitting at the passenger seat, looking forward at the car parked in front of us with their hands behind their head. "Who are you?" I asked bluntly, and I could see I'd taken them by surprise. The figure jumped up from their seat and turned their head around to look at me. I could see that it was a boy with pale skin and silver hair that reminded me of the characters in my brother's games. To my surprise, he smiled when he saw me. "Hey there, little guy," he greeted as if he were one of my relatives before he crawled forward into the middle seats. "I didn't think you'd wake up." I backed away as he came closer, which made him laugh as he sat backward in the chair, staring down at me. "Come on, there's no need for that. I swear I won't touch you." Being a 5-year-old, I wasn't equipped to handle a situation like this, and so I resorted to stating the obvious. "This isn't your car," I said. "That's true," he replied as his smile seemed to grow wider. "Don't worry, kid. I won't be here too long. I'm just waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked back, but in reply he just winked at me before lying back down on the seats. It was then that I noticed the smell around him, ashy and stale, like a dying fire. Not wanting to say anything else to the stranger, I moved to the edge of the seat and stared to the store's entrance, waiting for my family to come back. After some time passed, I saw my mom walk out toward the van alone in a hurry. It seemed she had finally noticed I was missing. "Hey," I said to the stranger, "you need to leave, my mom's coming." "Really?" he asked as he shot back up to look out the window. To my surprise, he seemed excited about the news. Upon seeing her walking down the lot, he turned to me with an oddly somber look, giving what he'd been acting like just moments before. "Well, kid," he said, "it's been fun talking to you, but I've got to get to work. Don't hate me too much for this, all right?" I was about to ask what he meant when a loud noise outside caught my attention. I turned back to the window to see that where my mother had been standing, a car was now in her place. A woman who I assume was the driver was standing next to the driver's side, screaming and sobbing as a crowd of people surround her. I was confused about what was happening until I saw 2 legs lying in the parking lot, the rest of the body obscured by the parked car. A trail of blood was leaking out from a wound I couldn't see, and as my eyes followed it, I noticed that at the end of the legs were my mother's shoes. I stood frozen for a few seconds as my brain processed the scene, and as tears started to run down my face, I turned around to face the boy. "What did you do?" I called out in anger, only to freeze when I realized I was now alone in the van. Somehow he had slipped out without me even hearing. Now alone and confused, I had no idea what else to do. So I did what any child would have done, crawled into the middle seats, pulled the door open, and ran to my mother. By the time I had gotten up to her, sizable crowd had already formed, and I could hear the wailing of an ambulance in the distance. I tried to shove my way through the onlookers, and as I did, I noticed the dying fire smell again. Looking to the direction of it, I could see a glimpse of silver hair before it disappeared through the group, and a new burst of energy coursed through my body. I pushed through the crowd with a strength I didn't think I was capable, shouting all the way. As I got to the edge of the crowd, who were now being pushed back by the store's security, I could see the boy walking out towards my mom, who was lying in a heap next to the entrance. "Leave her alone!" I shouted, and ran forward before any of the guards could stop me. The boy ignored my pleas as he neared my mother's body. When he got close enough to her, he knelt down by her side and raised his hand out to her. I was just about to reach them when I felt a pair of hands grab my waist and lift me up. "No!" I screeched, kicking and punching at my assailant as they pulled away. I looked over to see that it was my father, who was staring at me with a panicked expression as he marched back toward the crowd. "Let me go!" I protested. "You have to stop him!" But it was too late, I realized as I turned my head back. The boy had his hand resting on my mother's face, and he was staring at me with a look of remorse. In an instant, I stopped all my protesting and began to sob into my dad's shoulder. Later, when we were in the police office, we'd been told that my mother died on the scene. In her hurry to come back for me, she wasn't paying attention to the traffic of the parking lot and didn't notice a car pulling through the next lane. The woman was on her phone and didn't notice my mom until it was too late. I tried to tell them about the boy in the car, who knelt beside my mother as she was lying on the asphalt. However, everyone told me that I was the only one who had tried to run up to her. They even looked through security footage of the parking lot to see if there was anyone else in the van with me before my mother's death, and they saw that there was nobody else inside but me. Eventually, they had a specialist come in and say that the heat of the van, mixed with the trauma of the experience, had caused me to hallucinate the whole thing. Still, though, for the next few days, whenever we ride in that old van, I smell that dying fire scent lingering in the air. I've been paralyzed for 5 years. This morning, I woke up with feeling in my legs again. When I was 17 years old, I was in a horrific car accident that claimed the lives of my father and my little brother Jax. Not only did I lose two of the most important people to me on the same day, but I suffered an irreversible spine injury that left me paralyzed from the waist down. I was a very athletic kid, so suddenly being paralyzed was like having something precious ripped away from me. Track was suddenly no longer an option. My friends were still nice to me, but we eventually all drifted apart as I had completely altered my life around my injury. I had to move to the bottom floor of my 2-story house, and things that I once did mindlessly took planning and a lot of energy to complete. It took about a year to finally get into a steady rhythm of things, and another 2 to accept that being paralyzed is a part of who I am now. There is no cure for being paralyzed. At least that's what I thought. Last night, I was at a bar with a friend of mine named Frankie. She's a loud and rambunctious girl who likes to drink way too much, but I love her to death. It was around midnight when I first spotted the stranger staring at me from a corner booth at the bar. He had a drink in his hand that he was slowly sipping on. He was handsome, in an almost otherworldly sort of way. His porcelain skin seemed to glow in the dank bar light, and his amber eyes were fixated on me. He looked like an angel. He was rather dressed up for a bar in a button-down shirt and black slacks, but his tie was missing and the first few buttons of his shirt were undone. He looked like a businessman that was just having fun. I haven't been on a single date since being in my wheelchair. There are people that honestly don't care about it, but the feeling of being a burden hinders me from going back into the dating scene, so having a gorgeous man openly stare at me was rather unnerving. It took about 10 minutes for Frankie to notice him, and with a sly smile on her face, she subtly found someone to occupy her time, leaving the seat next to me at the table open for someone to claim. It didn't take long for him to take a seat next to me, and as he sat down, I got this feeling of dread in the pit of my stomach. He introduced himself as Ray, and we chatted on the weather and what we do for a living. I'm an artist, and he is actually a businessman, as I guessed. It explains the attire. Talking with him was like breathing, simple and easy. He never once asked about why I'm in a wheelchair, which is why I agreed to talk with him longer. As he ordered me more and more drinks, I found myself willingly talking about it for the first time since it happened. The question that followed after my story was one that still strikes me as important. What would you do to be able to walk again? It seemed like a harmless question, one that my friends have asked me before. Of course, the answer is always the same. Anything. I would do anything to be able to feel my legs again, to be able to walk and run and reach the cookies that my mother keeps just out of my reach. His tone was the only thing that was different, the thing that made me uneasy. It was almost teasing, his eyes alight with joy as I answered him. In the following hours, I don't know how, but I knew I made a very grave mistake by answering the way I did. The conversation ended rather abruptly after that, with Frankie falling into the table and spilling our drinks everywhere. I called us an Uber for a way home and prayed that she would be okay on her own. As we waited outside, Ray took my hand in his own and delicately planted a kiss on my knuckles, his eyes gleaming in the darkness. I'll be seeing you soon. Those words now haunt me as I stare at myself in the mirror, standing on my legs for the first time in 5 years. The words weren't a request. It was a statement, a promise. He will be seeing me, and I cannot help but wonder if his gift this morning is a threat or an order. What will I do to be able to walk again? I woke up this morning with the deadly-looking dagger on my nightstand, and symbols that I've never seen before were carved into the hilt, overlapping one another. There were triangles and circles and swirling patterns that resembles vines. That wasn't the only thing different. I could feel my legs. It wasn't just a gradual warm-up to walking. I could stand and jump and run. I'm not sure what I got myself into, but something tells me Ray is not just a normal person. Ever since waking up, I've periodically checked on the dagger, but it hasn't moved from the position on my nightstand. The symbols seem to glow as the night progresses, and I worry what will happen when I see Ray again.